Calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, April 10th, 2024. All right, let's start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present.
Vice Chair House.
I'm here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan.
Present.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Here.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
I'm here, by the way. Wrong answer.
All right, let's go to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. So is there anyone in the room wishing to, okay. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, Chair Grumbine, can I do a public comment?
We'll do that at maybe announcements, or unless you want to actually do it as a public comment.
Yeah, I was thinking it was more appropriate.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll fill out a little form.
Okay,
And-
sounds good.
And pardon
then-
the interruption. I do
Yes.
have a couple of speaker slips for general
Great.
public comment as
Okay,
well.
well, do you want to go ahead
You
and,
want to go first?
yeah, let's do that.
Then
Okay,
go first,
sounds good.
yeah.
Make sure you fill out your slip.
Yeah, we want to make sure we know who you are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Wonderful to see you, as always. I'm Cass Ensberg, and I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. One is that the annual Kids Draw Architecture program is
great.
happening this, do you want to?
Yeah, City TV, can you zoom in here?
Is happening this Sunday from 1 to 3 at the Mission, at the old Mission. And all of you, everyone is welcome to attend. The event is free, and it'll be from 1 to 3. So bring your children, bring your family. Please come and help the kids to sketch. And also, I wanted to mention about walking tours. This is a project that the Architectural Foundation does, and every week, on Sabado and Domingo, there are walking tours downtown in the EPV. So I just wanted to highlight this as we're, thinking about our downtown, and this is a great way for new people to the community, or maybe younger people, or just as a refresher course to remember and learn about our downtown. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I'll fill out a form. And thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, up next we'll have Emma Brinkman. If you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
I have a couple of photographs.
Oh, yeah, sure. Bring them on up.
There are 3. I've got them marked A, B, and C.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Grumbine. My name is Emma Brinkman, and my home is on the Lower Riviera. I would like to comment on the 2 landmark Doremus Italian stone pines that went down on Easter weekend. Last year, I spoke before this commission, and at that time, I felt these landmark trees were in peril. I requested a discussion item for the landmark trees to be added to the agenda. Please look at images A and B. The images show root failure to be the most likely cause of the tree's failure. Dense crowns are commonly associated with root failure, while tree decay is not. Easter weekend, we had precipitation, high winds, and saturated soils. All 3 contribute to root failure. We can't do much about what nature throws our way, but we can improve crown management by regular thinning. This would reduce the weight and ensure improved airflow through the crown. When crowns are subjected to precipitation, the water weight adds to the already burdened crowns. We shouldn't be too surprised with these conditions that we experience repeat failures. What is surprising is that the downed trees are not replaced with like. In 1982, City Parks and Rec named the Italian stone pine as the species for all future parkway planting in the 300 to 800 block of Anapamu. We have not witnessed any replacement plantings in the last 10 years. Please look at image C. This tree is prominently placed in front of the high school. a pitiful example of how Santa Barbara, Tree City, USA, takes care of a beloved landmark. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, up next, we'll have
Do you want
Chair.
your photos as well?
You want, oh.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, I guess we've had them on camera, so they're part of the record.
That was part of your record.
Yeah, it's part of the record now.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we have you on camera too, so you're.
Polka dots and stripes are allowed.
All right, up,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Are you leaving, ma'am,
Am I leaving?
right now?
No.
Okay, so we can, maybe when we have a further,
I can stay for.
yeah, so if there there might be some questions, yeah, so if you wouldn't mind sticking around. Yeah.
Public comment.
Yeah, what's that?
There's no Q and A in public
Yeah,
comment.
after public comment, we can, if there is a question for clarity under our announcements, et cetera. Okay.
Okay. Up next, we have Cherry Ray. If you can make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I was here last December asking for a plan to address the complex issue of protecting a city historic landmark, the 5-block stand of Italian stone pines on Anapamu Street. Since then, we have, as our previous speaker mentioned, we have lost 2 more of them, massive trees that fell in the rain, crushing cars and taking out utility lines, but mercifully sparing any injuries or worse. Although we are accustomed to reacting each time one of these trees falls, it's time for get better proactivity when it comes to this historic resource. Since the release of my recent biography, I've often been asked what would Pearl Chase do. We know with her 3 C's of communicate, coordinate, and cooperate, she would surely urge you to prioritize these trees that form a much revered canopy that she so enjoyed. No doubt she would request this body to direct staff to take a multi-department approach to evaluate the health of these iconic trees for historic preservation, as well as the health and safety of the community. And she would expect the creation and implementation of a timely plan that makes sense. She would likely pose multiple questions. If these historic trees can no longer flourish in this environment, what is to be done? What is the value? The specific trees, replacement with another species more suited for the environment, maintenance of the beloved canopy? And I'd also like to ask, where is the information about these living historic landmarks on the city's website? There's 1 page, it's a PDF. Where's the signage, not on just this stand, but on other historic trees around town? At the very least, this historic landmark, these historic landmark trees should have their own pages on the city website, complete with photos and interpretive history. It was back in 2013 that Callum DeForest and I came and spoke before the HLC, and then Commissioner Don Sharp expressed his concerns about coming up with a plan. It just never happened. They're both gone now, and I feel the need to continue to speak out for those good stewards, and like the Lorax, speak for the trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I don't have any further speaker slips, and we don't have any virtual participants, but we did receive 1 letter from Rick Clausen. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. Just as a point of order, if you would like to call any members of the public back up to ask questions, as Commissioner Uli said, we shouldn't get into too much of a discussion during public comment, but you do have the discretion to bring a member of the public back up if you want to ask some brief questions or
And is that
provide
best done
additional
in
time.
public comment? Or-
Yes, that would,
okay.
now would be the time to do that. And then if you are planning on requesting a discussion item about the issues brought up by the members of the public, that would be, the time to do that would be during announcements, and that should just be confined to a request for the discussion item.
Okay,
So.
great. All right, so it sounds like there's at least a question for maybe either or both of you, so if you wouldn't mind coming up. Commissioner Lundvik?
Yes. It isn't a
Oh, do you want to
question.
turn your mic?
It isn't a question for them, it's a question for staff.
Well then,
Okay.
Has staff talked to these people?
Well,
Yes, actually, I've been talking to the urban forest manager, supervisor, and in fact, we actually met with both of the public commenters today and Rick Clausen, the 5 of us.
The point I wanted to make is that I know I personally talked to you about what was happening to the stone pines. And you informed me that, the landscape committee or the urban forester were going to come to us at some point in time and talk about it. And it's never happened.
Yes.
And now we're losing trees. And for some reason, the public's going to go away saying, well, my gosh, Landmarks Commission's not doing a darn thing. And that bothers me, because we are concerned, but we don't have a lot of authority.
Right.
And
Okay,
I
so-
mean, the
okay.
authority, to be frankly honest, would be in the head of Parks and Rec, the Parks and Rec Commission, directing their staff to quickly get in here. I have talked to him. He is assessing the trees. He's done samples and taken them to a lab so he can give you a educated conversation about what's happening. And he said he hopes to be in front of you this summer. That I do think they're taking it seriously, but it's a big issue and there's a lot of things. But
well, I appreciate that. And this was here, what, a year ago? I forget what the time was.
I think October.
And at that time, I think we made a motion of some kind.
To ask them to come in front of us, but
Right.
I
And so
think,
nothing has happened, them coming to us.
I think.
I mean, it reminds me.
I am
oh,
not a
so,
supervisor
yeah, I'm
in
not-
the city.
So, yeah.
I
It
can't
reminds-
force
it
Parks
reminds
and Rec
me
to
of-
come here.
It reminds me of the Paseo that comes out onto Figueroa Street from the parking lot. Nothing ever gets done. It's been 2 years since we said, go away, remove the fencing, and nothing gets done.
So,
Well, maybe we should,
yeah.
maybe they can talk to the council or
Yeah.
Parks and Rec who have more authority.
Okay, so
than we
let's,
do.
and before we get into discussion, but I think it's important to get out what has happened as a history here, what we're talking about, like who said what to who, and so that we are at least
Right.
all informed on that. And then we can,
yes.
during announcements and that, we can talk about getting it agendized.
Yes, and I have been in conversations with Nathan Slack as the urban forest superintendent as well, and he's assessing them, trying to come with you with an educated document. The ordinances require documents from arborists. He's qualified in that sense, but you would want to have the facts. And
yeah.
again, like I'm the only architectural historian, he's the only urban forest manager. So it's a little more complicated than that, but I don't think it's because they don't care about the trees. It's just kind of
Yeah.
a complicated issue because they are their age and the failures and things that have happened over time to them. So that
Okay, so,
I'm in conversations with him all the time, and I've also been in conversations with the environmental analyst about how SEEK was involved with this as well, and reading the Secretary of Interior standards on how to treat cultural landscapes. So we're trying to get all this information, and hopefully we'll be back to you soon.
okay.
This summer is what he thought.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, or as on the request for future agenda, or for the future agenda items thing, just as what might be a good stepping
Just-
process, and maybe even having him come to us before and outlining a plan or something, so that we can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
part of the conversation and it's agendized, so that we don't get stuck not
We can
talking about
request it,
things.
but I
Yeah.
don't think I can command it.
Okay, well, we can.
You
No,
might
no.
be able to
Yeah, yeah.
write letters to people higher up than I.
My only suggestion is, go to the city council, find the council member that has that district, and pound on their desk every week. I mean, it's the only way it's gonna get done. We can't do it.
Okay, so.
Staff isn't able to do it.
So, and before we get into a conversation, I wanted to make sure that we at least got the facts out on the table of who's met with who and where things are, so at least everyone, including the public, is aware of what has actually happened, so they don't think that absolutely nothing has happened, or at least if nothing has happened, or everyone's clear that nothing has happened. And then also, even if we can't have, well, we'll get into that with on item D. We'll talk about what might be able to be done. Okay, so any other public comment
I have questions, and one question.
about this
Don't get
subject?
riled up like I do.
Of the public commenter who was talking, who showed that picture of that spindly tree? What, could you come up and, what kind of a tree is that?
That is a stone pine.
Badly treated stone pine.
Dead stone pine.
Yes, and the only reason that I feel it's still there is because it doesn't have a canopy. So it doesn't catch the wind.
When did they put that in the ground?
They were planted, I think, what was the original plantings?
that one?
They were all probably planted at the same time by Dr. Doremus.
No, I'm talking about that's a historic one as well?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, my God. Okay.
And there's 3 of them. So I would encourage all of
getting a little
you
excited
to
now,
park your
but-
car on Anapamu and take the walk. You would be shocked.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, any other public comment, discussion, or not discussion, but just
Yeah.
questions? All right, let's go on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission, March 27th, 2024.
Motion to
moved.
approve. Second.
All right, Commissioner Drury's all riled up, he said, right off the block. And then I heard Commissioner Butler second it. Okay, under discussion, do we have any edits? Everyone?
We look at you.
No? Okay.
You want to ask her twice?
Are you sure? Do we have any edits? No. Okay. If we have no edits, then, and we have a motion to approve the minutes, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, we are on to item C, approval of the consent calendar for April 10th, 2024.
Motion to approve the calendar.
Do I have a
Second.
second by Vice Chair House, okay. And to staff,
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Item A was 1317 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item B was 1242 Dover Lane, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item C was 801 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval as submitted. And then item D was 1111 East Cabrillo Boulevard, which was continued 4 weeks with the comments that the faux chimneys as proposed are not acceptable because they do not have the proportions of real chimneys. 2, study reducing the height and reducing the number of chimneys. And 3, study the architecture and provide detailed drawings that show the intended shape and details.
Mr. Chair.
all right, Vice Chair House, yes, please. Talk to us about chimneys.
Yes, I will, yeah. Okay, well, one thing to note about this application, it has a shot clock, is that what you called it? And is that a 60-day for this one?
So this one, because they are new telecommunication facilities, it's 150 days from submittal that staff has to process the application.
And that's leading up to either an approval or a denial?
Yes, but I should caution you all that we cannot deny the antennas themselves. We can only
Right.
deny the screening. So
Okay.
unfortunately,
Tricky.
we actually have no purview at all
Right.
over the antennas themselves, just
Yeah.
the screening.
So after we concluded and adjourned, Commissioner McClure said, maybe we should have referred this to the full board. So it got me thinking, and I thought, okay, I don't know if any of you have looked at what the application was, but this would be the opportunity for any of you to say this should come back to the full board. These fiberglass towers that are going to be painted supposedly and textured like the rough stucco texture on that building, and this is not part of a historic building on the Marmonte property, it's a later addition, but there are currently existing some faux chimneys which aren't real chimneys, they're just stucco things that were stuck on there to give the building some character, and these are several times taller. They did not have a dimension for how much they stick up above the ridge line, but they would be very prominent, and it's our coastline, it's our beachfront, and it's a very visually imposing sort of thing, which is why I told her that these were not acceptable as proposed. So, they don't have any detail to the top, they're just square. So I just bring this up in case anybody is familiar with what this application is and feels that it should come back to full board.
All right, anyone?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I think it should come to the full board. It's a very prominent building across from the I just lost the name of it, across the street.
And did I say there are 7 of these?
No, you didn't.
Yes, on Cabrillo
Yeah,
Boulevard, but,
yeah,
you know,
It's not one or two.
Not the bathhouse, but, you know, the,
It's a tight tape.
the pavilion, that's what I was trying to, I was coming up with the pavilion. Yeah, and I think we should see it.
Yeah.
I think we should see it.
Yeah, so when it comes back, to come to the full board.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Well, let's see, so how do we handle this? Can it come back to full board in 4 weeks, or?
So the process would be, this is your time where you can amend the motion to say, continue 4 weeks to the full commission with those same comments. And it would be the same, if you stand by those comments, it would be the same thing. They would just come to full commission instead of consent. No
Right.
problem at all.
So moved.
All right,
Mr. Chair.
and the seconder of the motion,
Comment?
and that would be.
Question?
Yeah, we'll go in, well, 1 second, let's get the seconder to agree, and then we can have
Was I
discussion.
the seconder?
Yes, you were,
Okay.
that's right. So the seconder agrees?
Yes,
'Cause
yes.
You're the one, okay, great, and under discussion.
It's a question for staff. So these antennas and their height are not negotiable, just whatever's around them.
That is
What about
correct.
their position on the building?
You can work with the applicant on the location as well. My best advice would be to work with the applicant on getting an approvable design for the screening. I don't know what kind of protection we would have or what kind of purview we would have if they decide to forego screening altogether. So that is my concern and our concern as staff, is we want to make sure that these antennas are being screened in a way that is complementary to the building. So that is something to consider when you're reviewing the project.
Through
You
the
know, as
chair.
I understand it from reading the document that you sent me, it would normally require a conditional use permit and would be exempt if there was no visual impact. So that's a fine point of it, that, you know, potentially they'd need a conditional use permit and couldn't just take the screening off. But I don't know.
I would have to look into that
Okay.
further.
Yes, Commissioner Early.
Thank you. I don't think anything that touches the actual antenna is under our purview. Location, height, size, anything, because it's covered by the Telecommunications Act. Really, the only thing is screening. So it seems to me it's an egg and a chicken that can't get out because the tower or the antenna will be the antenna in its configuration, and how it gets screened becomes a very big challenge if we're trying to make it look right. So this chimney would have to be really big, I suppose, to have the scale of it to make sense. So I don't know how productive it would be to bring it back to the full commission and debate about that if there's not really a whole lot of control that we have over it.
Let me add a couple points. One was that I asked about the detail at the top. I mean, as I say, it's just a rectangular box going up tall and a flat top to it, but down a foot or so was a reveal. And I asked what that was about. And they said, well, it's going to look like the existing chimneys. And we'll put a note on the plans. I said, well, it'll take more than a note on the plans. I need details so an inspector knows that what he's approving is what we approved. I also asked whether or not it was possible to consolidate these into the center of the roof wells so that they were more distant from the view from the street. And she said that they need to be apart for better coverage or something, but it did look like an option that they could explore, so.
Yeah, and I think it probably, while I don't know if there's a lot different that the whole board would do versus the, consent, in terms of being able to come up with a
Yeah.
helpful solution, it probably is still a good idea, especially if the more we're gonna have to deal with this as a board.
And then if somebody says, who approved that? It's not just me.
Yeah, that's true too.
Oh, I see what the issue is now. I get it.
It's like why one person in a firing squad doesn't have a bullet, because you never
Give you a
know.
give you a
actually
little
who
cover.
killed them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it might be good for that anyways, also for, yeah. And in the meantime, everyone could keep their eyes open for potential ideas that might be good screening devices.
I never liked him. It just never works in the long
Well,
run.
or we can do like Cayucas and just have like giant smokestacks.
Yeah.
And then that can, that could become the new symbol for Santa Barbara. It'd be like, 7 smokestacks. Yes, Commissioner?
Yes. Chair Grumbine, just to ask a really maybe silly question, is it better just to have the tower and not have the screening? I mean, what do they?
Well, I think that's what Commissioner Uli was implying, that might be it. But
Maybe
I
it's-
think
I don't know what they look like,
It'll be
but-
worth that discussion, I think, and it might be that
Okay.
the best thing is just to do nothing.
Paint them black, they'll disappear. Is that the strategy?
Or have them like painted at the horizon line. blue
Yeah, there you
above.
go.
All right, any other discussion before I think we should vote on this and keep moving. Okay, so we've got a second, with that modification, we've got a motion and a second. So let's have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Aye.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvig,
No.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, and then Commissioner Levick, did you want to comment on why you said?
It's a losing effort.
Oh, good. That's the spirit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's go on to item D, announcement request by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Early.
I would like to make a formal HLC request to the Director of Parks to have the Anapamu Pines situation brought before the HLC at the earliest possible convenience.
All right, and as part of that is, do we want something, it sounds like there's a lot of background work and understanding going on.
They'll have plenty of time. They've already done it. They've got plenty of time to pull it together. It's not complicated.
Okay, is there a desire to have any meeting before all the information is there and compiled?
I don't think so.
Okay.
A meeting to talk about what they're going to bring to a meeting that we're going to
Yeah,
schedule so we can hear
exactly.
it. Yeah, I think they just pull it together. It's not a complicated thing. They've had, as Miranda Priestley would say, they've had hours and hours to prepare. They've had plenty of time to pull it together. So I suggest that we make a formal request of the director to bring it before the commission at the earliest possible convenience.
And then, and maybe to add to that to staff to reach out and also let us know what that is looking like in terms of a general timeframe of when that would be about.
Well, the last time I talked to him, which was last week, it would be this summer sometime.
Okay.
It
'Cause he
should
has
be
to get
sooner
the-
than that.
So let's see
I
what,
think you might need, as a commission,
yeah.
to maybe also do a formal letter to,
Yeah.
in addition to the council and the directors. And I know the city planner, I talked to her about it today, and she's going to try and talk to the community development director as well, because I don't think it coming from staff.
Got it,
As
okay.
not in a formal letter has been working.
Okay, so it sounds good. So
Maybe as
I'll-
the chair, we can.
Yeah, so maybe I'll draft something and then we can get it sent off.
We don't want to wait till late summer. This should
Yeah.
be, what is it? It should be like the first meeting in May.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so let's do that and we'll get that letter off this week.
And Chair Grumbine, could we also emphasize that I would be very interested in hearing their plan for replacement of the trees that have been not replaced over the many years, and what's their plan for that? To include that in this information that they come forward with.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that is their intent, to come with all that. I just don't think
No,
Yeah.
right, I
think it needs
understand,
to
I
come
understand.
Yeah.
more formally.
I understand, just to include that in our letter to them. Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so that is that's not a motion, that's just a request.
Yes,
Okay, great.
the formal request has been noted by staff, and we've expressed as
Awesome.
staff
Thank
and
you.
commission our limitations as well.
Okay, great. Other announcements, requests by applicants for continuance withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals?
Mr. Chair, I have to leave at 5 today sharp.
Well, it's good, because we're going to be done by 5.
It's been mandated.
And I need to leave at 4:45.
Okay, okay. So, just to outdo you. Yeah, so, and along that, and for the future agenda items discussion as well. So, I would say, so as part of what we were notified of was needing to have that meeting, or the meeting ending by 5 so that we don't run late for staff time, and that we're not going to have it again on a future agenda item. And I would say that aligns with what has been the discussion of, in terms of every SSAC meeting, the immediate following meeting, we're automatically agendizing a discussion so that HLC can give the input to not just Commissioner Landvik, but also weigh in and give that their information and input to SSAC to help guide their decision. And so I think it's in that spirit that we're trying to do. The last one was much longer. It was our first one, and it was the first time seeing the material as well. So it has taken double as long, so we're having a second meeting, which I think is appropriate, and we'll try to keep it brief. But I think it is in that spirit that that in terms of the organized plan, that we want to march in this way, in terms of being sort of disciplined about it, and getting our chance to say what we need to say, and at least in a reasonable amount. And I would ask for, on the staff side of things, in terms of our discussion of it, that it be framed in that kind of methodology of like where we decided on, that every meeting after, and not so much on, because we have asked a lot, but not so much on a inability for HLC to agendize things or to ask for agendized things, with sort of a blanket, we're not going to be able to talk about it way. That's a nuance, I think, but I think it's an important nuance that when we ask things to be agendized, certain things like the stone pines or things like that, there's going to be stronger and stronger purview of as well. But I think that also if agendas aren't full, that is also a delicate situation, because we can't talk about things outside of agendizing them. And so the request to staff, as well as we're doing that, kind of explaining our game plan for it, and why we're sort of creating this box for us to discuss things in, but also not be too harsh with HLC not being able to agendize things. So I think it's a subtle thing. I think we're getting at the same thing, but I also do want to be respectful of HLC members, especially ones that really do want to talk about things, that we have some sort of a framework and a regularity and reasoning for why we're going to do it and when we're going to do it. So, and I think the SSCC meetings will be coming up, so there'll be more chances, but I know there has been frustration on the HLC board member side of things, or community member side of things, that we haven't been able to talk about a lot of the stuff that's been happening because it's not agendized. So, and we also need to be respectful and careful of staff time and not overburdening everyone with our requests. So I think it'll be both. So those are just some notes on that, and hopefully that'll work. And if we don't keep moving today, we will run out of time. So
Yes.
We'll be sticking to 5 o'clock. So, all right. That also helps us to be faster on the other items, or more concise as we march along. And I'll try to be helping in that too. So with that, any other announcements or other future agenda items or that? Okay. All right. Subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee reports?
Nothing from designations.
All right. Commissioner Ansberg, did you want to report on State Street Interim Working Group, which is now on our list, so thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. Just a quick little report that we talked about last time, which is that our little work group of Commissioner McClure, Chair Grumbine, and myself, we did meet this last Monday just to kind of continue working on putting together a document about the outdoor dining furniture and accessories. And so we're trying to get it into a draft form that we can then meet with staff to show them what we're thinking and get their feedback in a way to try to get out in front of and help people as they're trying to purchase stuff. We want them to, I think most people just want to know what is good and what's going to fly, and then they're very happy to do that. So, so we're working on it. We've addressed all the basic issues in this as a draft, and I think we've got a draft of a note to staff that we're going to be sending, just to let them know and move forward with that. If you want to add anything, do either of you want to?
Yeah, and the goal and idea is have the sort of inspiration images, but also actual specs that we can find that are reasonably priced that would fit the bill so that people can actually do, if they want to just go easily and select from a couple of options, they could do so. And so it hopefully will help streamline the process and get people picking things that are right away EPV acceptable. So, all right. Great. And any other subcommittee reports? All right, on to the archaeology report, item 1 for 2375 Foothill Road. All right. This is, property is not historic or within a historic district. Project consists of the replacement of existing, aging, and obsolete drinking water, booster pump, electrical instrumentation, and controls equipment at the Sheffield Pump Station. Specifically, the project will replace the stations, switchboard, motor control center, soft starters, automatic transfer switch, program logic control center, conduits, instruments, flow meters, and flow meter pressure monitors, and applicable appurtenances, primarily within an existing structure. The project will not increase the capacity of the pump station. Minor ground disturbance is limited to a City of Santa Barbara property. All work is limited to the replacement of interior equipment, with the exception of temporary power pole. This is requesting acceptance of Phase 1 Archaeological Resources Report prepared by Rincon Consultants. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, with that, welcome. If you can introduce yourselves for the record.
Great. Thank you, Chair Grumbrine and Commissioners. My name is Kelly Bork. I'm a Senior Project Engineer in Public Works Water Resources Engineering. This is Mr. Ken Victorino with Rincon Consultants. He's a Senior Principal Investigator. I'll briefly introduce the project and then pass it along to Mr. Victorino to answer any questions about the Phase 1 report. The Sheffield Pump Station is located just east of the Santa Barbara Tennis Club on Foothill Road. It was built in the 1950s to pump water up to Sheffield Reservoir. In the 1980s, we installed additional electrical and controls equipment for the 4 pumps on site there. And today, I'm managing a project to replace the electrical equipment and controls equipment out there, as it is almost 45, 50 years old. So to do that, we have to do some minor excavation on site. We need to install a temporary power pole to keep the pump station in service, and some minor conduit work. So I'll pass it along to Ken to, I guess, describe the findings.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. So consistent with the city's MEA, Rincon conducted a record search at the Central Coast Information Center. We also reviewed, historic maps and historic aerials, including the Wackenrooters and the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps. None of those sources indicated there was previously known archaeological resources at the project site. We also conducted a Phase 1 pedestrian survey to visually, inspect all of the areas at the project site. That survey did not identify anything within the project site in terms of archaeological resources. So based on the limited ground disturbances associated with the project and the level of previous disturbance associated with, construction of the facility, there is a low potential for intact archaeological sites to be encountered. Consistent with the MEA, we have included a recommendation for the typical unanticipated discovery. Something unexpected is found during construction. And consistent with that also, the project and all projects are required to be in compliance with existing health and safety laws regarding the incidental or accidental find of human remains. So that's about it. It's a small project, easy, study for us. But please, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you. All right, so if that completes your presentation, we will go on to public comment. So anyone in the room wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing no one, do we have virtual?
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. All right, to the commission, any questions about the archaeology?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
so is this project part of the project, like San Roque, up top of San Roque Road, there's another city project going that came before us? Is it part of an upgrade generally of the facilities?
To answer your question, no. I believe the item that came to you last time by Phil Maldonado was the Cater Reservoir Resilience
Yeah.
Project. This project is only related in that it's also a drinking water project. Water from Cater does travel down directly to this pump station, which pumps it up to Sheffield Reservoir.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Uli?
Mr. Chair, just as a matter of practicality, since the project itself is not in our jurisdiction because it's not historic, it's purely because we are the adopter or approval of ARC reports. I would imagine, just for a point of clarity, we're not going to see anything about this project past this. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, good point. All right, Commissioner Roy?
Question for the city. This involves the replacement of existing, aging, and obsolete. Is this scheduled because best practices say it's time to do that? Or have there been failures? Is this a response to an emergency?
No, Commissioner, there's been no emergencies or failures. The electrical equipment is reaching its end of
Okay,
service life.
that's fine.
And there's been many repairs to the controls components.
There wasn't like a stone pine that fell on it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, too
I
soon.
don't know, I have a problem with those automatic transfer switches.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
Just two questions. First of all, just confirmation, all the work's interior to the building, correct?
There will be some exterior work. The temporary power pole through SCE and some minor conduits between an outdoor generator and the interior of the building. But no modifications to the building itself.
Okay. And then the second, access to the project, will that use existing roadway or access to this building, or how will access for the work?
The current access to the site is via an easement through the tennis club, so there'll be no new roads or new excavation.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the report as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Under discussion, any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grabine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler?
Yes?
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That was one of the most discussed ARC reports we've had. All right.
I like them that way.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, we're on to item 2, Historic Structures Report for 518 through 524 North Milpas Street. This is review of a Phase 1 Historic Structure Sites Report prepared by Post Hazeltine for the property at 518 North Milpas Street, requesting acceptance of a Phase 1 Historic Structure Site Report prepared by Post Hazeltine. The report concluded the building at 518 North Milpas Street is eligible for listing as a City of Santa Barbara Structure of Merit, and the contributing portions of the building are a significant historic resource for the purposes of CEQA review. All right. So with that, welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record.
Pamela Post, Post Hazeltine Associates.
Tim Hazeltine, Post Hazeltine Associates.
All right. So why don't you run us through a summary of your report?
Okay, I'll try to be quick.
All right.
It's a directive. So. The building was constructed in 1925 for Alfred Robertson. The contractor was Elmer Whitaker. The architectural firm, which was headquartered in Oakland, was Wythe. Exactly. It is one of a row of one-story Spanish revivals, commercial buildings constructed to the design of the firm between 1925 and 1926. I think it's 502 to the project property. And let me see if I can pull up some photos here so we can get an idea. This actually is just a historical photo of I always thought this was interesting. It's kind of beside the point, but this is the Sailor's Sycamore that was located near the base of State Street, part of Milpas.
I thought it was that stone pine again.
Yeah, no stone pine, I promise. Yeah. Okay, the Exhibit 1. And this is actually an image of how the state highway I'm getting the wrong word, how transected Santa Barbara. And so one of the reasons that Milpas started to develop as a commercial corridor was because the state highway was routed up Milpas Street. And that's when you started to see gas stations, little restaurants, little commercial buildings mixed with residential. Because before that date, it was almost exclusively residential and with large expanses of parcels that actually were not developed. And here's the best image we could find of the complex of commercial buildings on North Milpas Street. And you can see they all sort of shared a similar, the same architectural vocabulary, but they were varied so that each storefront or of the buildings was a little different. And we've included a lot of aerials to show how that particular block developed through time. As you can see, there's a lot of vacant land, even in 20s and 30s. And in fact, the state, you may know that there's a car wash facility there, and that lot remained vacant until a car wash was built, which is sort of remarkable in Santa Barbara. And so I'll just cursor through these. And we have photos of existing conditions. This is the north end of the block. The next image here, figure 8, is the south end of the block, and then we just have photos of the streetscape. And so we're going to get to, and here's some more. There's the Mecca, which we all remember. And the Mecca is an example at 512 of how these buildings were altered over time, especially as we know with commercial buildings, that's pretty frequent. You know, change in use, change in owners, change in business. But what they did preserve is with their plate heights, their roofs, which have vary between hipped and shed and gable, tile-clad, mostly tile-clad exteriors have been preserved. A sufficient amount of the fenestration and door and window openings. The Mecca is probably one that's changed more than most, but it does have its own unique quality there with the signage.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. And let's just get to what it looks like now. Okay, so this is the street facade. And of course, we look at this and we go, well, this doesn't look like 1925. And in some areas, it doesn't. The grill work, I'll call them textile blocks, I'm being generous. But those were installed in the early 50s when it was converted into a nightclub by Louise LaPra, whose family owned the building actually their family still owns the building. And we believe the fieldstone was added at that time. What is preserved are the roofs, and above on the right-hand side of the building, you can see the 2 little square windows set in shallow recesses. Those are original. The door and window openings are original, but when they converted it into a nightclub, they wanted less light or daylight, so they enclosed them with these grills, but the openings themselves are still there. And here's another shot of that. You can see that. Now, we concluded, Pam and I, that those textile blocks are not contributing, that they're non-contributing. So here's some more images of the building. You can see how the architects varied the street frontages of each building a little. Sometimes they're set back a little, sometimes they're flush with the sidewalk to create a little bit of variety. This is the side of the building. So you can see the flat roof section behind the shed roof on the right-hand side, and then it steps back. And then there's a 2-story section that was built in the late 40s, early 50s. We considered all of that to be non-contributing because it really it's not from the period of significance, and it's not a great example of 1940s or 1950s architecture. Here's the back of the building, or the side, equally distinguished. And then this is the back. And then I'll just jump right, and you can see there are more images of, this is all the additions. So this part of the building is completely from the 40s and 50s, not from 1925. I'll just cursor through, there's the the car wash. And then we'll get into significance or integrity. As we noted, the building's integrity is not exemplary. but it maintains enough of its features and architectural elements and materials to contribute to that whole length or that whole block of buildings designed by Wythe, Blaine, and Olson. And it's really a little unusual because on Milpas Street, it is the only example from the 1920s or even the 1930s of a block of commercial buildings designed by the same firm in the same architectural style. And in fact, even if you go up and down State Street, there are very few areas where you get a whole line of buildings, especially of this sort of diminutive one-story size. So our conclusion was that, yes, integrity is diminished, but it retains sufficient integrity to contribute to the row of buildings, at least the original part, the 1925 section that faces onto North Milpas Street. So our conclusion was the building was eligible at the merit level individually, but also as a contributor to this very sort of unique example of mid-1920s commercial architecture on Milpas Street. And so,
I just want to say a little bit about the architects, Wythe, Blaine, and Olson. Their firm was from Oakland, and they originally came down because of the earthquake of 1925. They did some remodeling of the Arlington Hotel, and they stayed on to do this commercial building as well as like the El Presidio and some other buildings in Santa Barbara, but they certainly are an architectural firm of some note, so that was another reason that we consider this significant.
Mm-hmm. Great.
that concludes our presentation. We're here to answer any questions.
All right, perfect.
Mr. Chair, I agree
Go
with
ahead.
the conclusions of the report. And I also wanted to, if you didn't know, we designated almost all the other ones on that block when we were doing the mass designations. And so almost all the other ones are structures of merit.
Okay. Great, all right. So now we can go to public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to comment on this item in the public? All right, seeing none.
All right. Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Commissioner Drury.
Have you found any photographs of the old King's Supper Club?
The interior?
The exterior, yes.
No.
That's
and
too
we
bad. There was a pretty amazing neon sign out front. I just know this from hearsay, of course.
You mean, Commissioner, I can't add that as personal communication? Okay, thank you.
All right.
I just have to say, as an aside, speaking of the nightclub, there were several individuals that performed there in the late 50s and early 60s. Champ Butler, could say, Scatman Crothers, Shelley Berman, and my partner had to say, who's Champ Butler? So I had to answer that because I knew, I knew I was a little older than he. I knew who he was. Yeah, singer of some repute in the 50s. Yeah.
We had to stand outside and listen. We weren't allowed inside, yeah. Scatman Crothers was pretty amazing.
All right.
A question, I read the report, but the more I'm listening to this conversation, this question, have you found any photos of a younger Commissioner Drury around?
Listening through the block, the concrete blocks.
Okay.
Commissioner Jordan, no, we have not.
Yep. All right. Any
have a
questions?
question,
Yeah,
yes.
Commissioner Lundvik.
On page 36, you're talking about significance criteria, and at the bottom there, under structures of merit, item 1, it is associated with events that made significant contributions in our past, but yet you go down to trying to think of where it might be now. The summary on page 38, summary 6.4.2, you say it meets the criteria of 1, 3, and 5. So is there not a conflict between the prior statement that one is not significant and the following one which says it is?
Well, Commissioner, that's a typo, and we'll correct that and send it.
Typo, which one?
That it meets one, and I can explain why it does
okay.
not if you would
No, I
like us to.
understand it
Yes,
doesn't.
no, that was a
So it's a
mistake,
typo,
and
okay.
we can resend that to
Yeah,
Nicole and
okay.
correct that.
Good catch. Yeah, good catch.
Nothing else
Keeps
to get
alive.
my time.
All right. Other questions? All right. So is there comments and a motion?
I have a general comment. I don't find the subject extraordinarily unique. And I suppose without it being part of a collection and by a somewhat notable California architectural firm, there's nothing extraordinary about the building itself, really. So I'm a little conflicted that, you know, it's much like the importance of the little motorcycle shop that is going to be torn down and turned into a weather vane.
Different project.
That the history that we're acknowledging is invisible to the common person walking by. And so I don't know how we capture that history and let it be known, because it's invisible history.
Is there, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I would, I mean, if it's a.
Okay. Commissioner.
It's kind of a question mark.
Yeah, is it in terms of the history of the building or the architecture? Because part of the reason that it's eligible is, as noted in the report, is that it contributes this whole row of buildings. So together, it sort of enhances, individually they may not be significant, but as a group of relatively modest structures, that's what gives them significance. But it's, standard practice to individually designate the building, and then, it could be added potentially, if the commission agrees, to the list of structures of merit. And there's also the possibility that was beyond the purview of our report to basically take those whole row of buildings and designate them as almost like a mini historic district. So they would all be sort of together, because each of them contributes to the other. And the loss of one of them will diminish the integrity of the others, because they will be less able to convey their historical and architectural associations. So you lose one part of a complex that was designed by the same firm to the same style, it diminishes all of them.
I would agree with that. So I suppose in essence, we're providing some level of protection for this particular resource in deference to the collection of the resources. But any one of them could go if they're privately owned and,
Well, I mean, I presume they would, any others that have not already been designated as, it was already noted that, those would also have to come in here because they're more than 50 years of age, and then you
Yes.
would make your decision based on.
doesn't
any
stop
others.
anybody from tearing it down. It's just
It just makes it
harder.
a longer process,
Yeah.
thankfully.
So I'm struggling, the fact that, and I suppose also what adds some relief to that struggle is that the materials that have been attached to this building are removable. The textile blocks could be removed, the stone could be removed, and the building could be put back close to what it was.
Correct.
So, okay.
Yeah,
So-
and then, of course, depending on how what the board decides, if they decide that it is a historic resource for review, then a Phase 2 report would be prepared, and it would very clearly identify what parts of the structure are significant. And Pam and I if we could verbalize right now, it's really the front part of the building. Everything in back, as I noted before, is non-contributing, so it would just be the first.
The facade,
20,
basically.
yeah, about 15 feet, more or less.
I just wanted to clarify that once a report like this does find a building historically significant, it very much does prevent the demolition. You would have to make findings to demolish it.
Doesn't stop it, it just makes it harder.
It doesn't, but they'd have to do a full EIR, and I haven't had anybody willing to go through that since I've been here, except for the railroad.
They were just like, we're called the railroad
So it
for a
is pretty
reason.
preventative. I think it's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Drury, then Commissioner Lenvick.
So if you go south toward Haley Street intersection, the only really remarkable building, well, actually one's across the street on Haley and Milpas with that two-story. But that, I think was a pharmacy at some point, across catty corner, with that curved front. Is that historic as well?
I would have to have the address to refresh my memory. I'm not sure which building you're referring to.
It's the very end of, it's across the street from In-N-Out or whatever that fast food place is.
Jack in the Box.
Jack in
Oh,
the
boy.
Box. Oh, yeah, that's sort of triangular. It has a slight triangle, in the back is triangular. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would defer to Ms. Hernandez because I don't know if that building has been put on the inventory or if it's been evaluated before.
Right on the corner.
I don't know, the brick one is designated.
And then a catty corner from that, on that corner.
I think it's on the inventory, but
It's the end of the block we're talking about.
Oh, in the photograph?
Yes.
I think they're all designated except for this one, the whole
right.
block.
Thank you.
This one just wasn't put on the inventory, and when we put everything on the inventory in front of you for designation, this wasn't on the inventory, so that's why it's kind of lagging
gotcha.
behind.
Yeah. All right, and then, is there any other?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lenvick and then Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you. I find that the report is really reaching, really reaching to suggest that this be designated a structure of merit. I find nothing worthy in the history of it, in the architecture, nothing. The fact that somebody in Oakland designed it along with 4 other buildings that are probably equally mediocre is, to me, pitiful. And I could never support this designation.
Okay. Other,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ensberg, and then, I think Commissioner, you were angling towards your microphone. Okay.
Do you want me to go?
Commissioner Ensberg, then we'll go
Okay.
Vice Chair House.
Thank you. Well, I'm really struggling too. I agree with Commissioner Uli and Commissioner Lenvick, although I so highly regard your review and also our historian Hernandez's review as well. So I'm really struggling with it. For me, I love the best thing about it is the Mecca sign. But other than that, I just feel like it, and I guess looking down the road as we're trying to get more housing developed and stuff, I'm concerned about putting up further barriers to that and whether this is really truly that worthy when we're trying to also accomplish these other things. And so I'm struggling with it as well.
Vice Chair House?
Well, I would say I initially agreed with Commissioner Lenvick as I was reading the report, but then when I understood the context of it being a part of a block of history, I recognize that's important. That's our job here, is to preserve that, and it's there. And there's an architect listed for this project, which suggests perhaps there are plans to take it back to its historical elegance. Well, I don't know if it was ever elegant, but but anyway, so I do support the
findings.
Yeah, the findings.
Others want to weigh in before I'll jump in at the end. Yeah.
Just for clarification, if we accept the Phase 1 report, what does that mean? Is the building automatically designated a structure of merit?
No, it's not. It's automatically put on the historic resources inventory.
Which?
If it's not designated.
It's put on the inventory. We'd have to do a separate hearing for designation.
Acceptance does not lead automatically to a call for a Phase 2.
If there's a project.
Only if there's a project, right? Okay. Thank you.
And just as a point of clarification, so Ms. Hernandez, as our architecture historian, could have just put this on the inventory. Is that right?
I can if it's a very clear, I usually will do it if it's very clearly significant. When it's questionable
Yeah.
or there's some serious alterations going on that need your review. So
Gotcha, yep.
I will always call the reports when it's a lot more research that needs to go in than this is an untouched craftsman.
Yeah.
I got this, but with these more
Yeah, more
complicated
complex,
ones
yeah,
come
gray
before you with a
areas.
consultant.
Yeah, okay. And then, sorry, was there someone?
Me.
Yeah, Commissioner Billy?
The only caveat to Commissioner Jordan's comment is oftentimes we get stuck in this mousetrap where we've accepted a Phase 1 report that suggests that it should be designated, and then we don't designate it, or we go counter to that, and we've always been cautioned that, well, you already said it wasn't significantly important in this report you adopted in 1980, and now you can't. So I just want to be clear that, even though this might set it up to be eligible, that it's still the discretion of a future HLC panel to make the actual designation.
And I'll just jump in because it's turning to more of a conversation anyway. So it is one of those examples where it's a gray area. I think it's close. One way or the other, it's close because it's been modified so much that it's not super easy. There is at least an architect of note, as opposed to no architect or an architect of ill repute, which might also be of note. So it does seem like because it has been changed that it's harder to make the easy findings. I wouldn't go so far as Commissioner Lenvick's pushing it in terms of like there being nothing there, because I think there's definitely an argument to be made. And I would lean, because of the other ones probably being a little bit better condition, and this being a whole strip and configuration designed together, it does seem to have at least more weight in my mind, both because there can be an architect argument as well as the connections to the other, and it also on the I'm also want to be sensitive about the burdening of the land as well. And in my mind, it's probably like it was with an example of our housing project with the Edwards and Plunkett brick, frontage building arch, that basically they kept the first 10 feet or whatever, 15 feet of it, and that was the most important anyways, and then they were able to work with it. I don't think that this decision is really hampering the use or the further development of the property and for those other goals that there might be, without being able to keep and work with what the whole strip of them. So in my mind, it's not also like too much of a burdensome issue as well. And I'm leaning more towards, because of the architect argument and the whole series and the description of Milpas and its importance as well as part of this development, I think there is at least an argument for that I would lean more towards in favor of accepting the report.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of moving this along so that it's not 4:45 when we get to our last
Yes.
agenda item, I will make a motion for approval of the historic structures
Second.
report.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Under discussion, any further discussion? Yes, Commissioner Lund.
I believe we are lowering our standards almost below the neutral line into negative territory. I would hate to be the one who is giving a tour to the National Historians Organization, who are in Santa Barbara for a convention, and drive by this building and point to the brass plaque that's on the front that says this is a structure of merit in the city of Santa Barbara. I would have a tough time doing that. And yet we are in the position of saying, we're going to put a brass plaque on that building and identify it as a structure of merit. And anybody who drives by, is going to scratch their head and say, it's wonderful. That's really wonderful, Santa Barbara. Really, really wonderful. I think we're making a big mistake to accept this report and have the building be designated a structure of merit. The facade, a structure of
We
merit.
can always put the sign on the one right next to it. And then just
Well,
Me Too sign.
it's true, or you put it in the car wash, whatever.
Okay, so other discussion?
I'm comforted that we're not designated in a structure of merit. We're just evaluating for its potential eligibility for that. I think there's going to have to be a strong case if this comes to us as a structure of merit to clarify the details.
Okay. Other discussion?
Well, this says it is
Eligible.
eligible.
We're not designating it.
Yeah, eligible.
As is anything on the historic resources inventory.
Okay.
Call for the question.
All right. And seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Lindvik,
No.
Commissioner Uli,
surprise.
Commissioner Uli,
Oh, yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you.
I don't think we have to ask him why.
Commission.
I think it's clear on the tape.
Yeah. This is probably the most clear, so there's no way anyone can know why. That's not. Okay.
You're as good as giving them a.
On to item 3, miscellaneous action item for 228 East Figueroa Street. This is a contributing historic resource of the El Pueblo Viejo landmark district constructed in 1923 in the craftsman style with 2 vernacular style cottages in the rear of the lot. Request for a determination if the twin cottages contribute to the historic significance of the site. So this is, and then this historic significance report. All right, so to Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you, Commissioners. I was requested to evaluate the 2 rear cottages by the properties for sale, and the new property owners would like to know. So I was going to just do a little brief history of some of the rear cottages, courts, and such that we have in Santa Barbara to give some of our newer members. We had large presentations on our bungalow courts several years ago. We designated as many as we could. We have about, I would say, 15, but this one is not quite as high style as some of our courts, and so I wanted to bring it to you. It's in El Pueblo Viejo, but the front building was evaluated by Post Hazeltine in the Cultural Survey when we had the building, the big project going on the corner of Garden and East Anapamu. They did a whole cultural survey, and they evaluated the front building, the craftsman, as significant for the historic streetscape, but they didn't look at the rear cottages. So I felt, and Ellen and I talked and thought this should really come to the commission with our history of courts and let you all decide. So just as a background, bungalow courts started in Pasadena in 1909, and they can come in like a whole U shape with an apartment building on the end. They can have gardens in the middle, driveways in the middle, and they can be one-sided like a half court. And they were really prominent in the 20s when there was a huge population booms in California. They're really unique to California as a way to provide housing for this growing population boom, and they're really special and unique. But here's some of our significant ones just to give you some context. One of the first in Santa Barbara was built in 1910 at 615 De La Vina, Castellino Court. This is a structure of merit. There's 2 bungalows facing the front and then 8 cottages going back on each side, and there's a driveway down the middle. It's hard to photograph the front one, but you can't really see the court when you're driving down De La Vina. You see the craftsman's, sort of like at 228. This one's one of our more high-style bungalow courts on East Sola Street, where, again, you have the 2 prominent bungalows facing this street, and then really the cottages go around the courtyard, which is a garden, and then an apartment building at the end. And these are some of those details. This is a craftsman where the courtyard was actually constructed more in the rear of the property at the alley. This is a picture of the court, but you can't see it from Mitchell Terreno or the side street because it's surrounded by 12 more craftsmen. They're all identical, but the court is hidden on the streetscape. But these are some of what you see on the street. This is a more high-style one on West Beach, built in 1924 and 25, where, again, they're surrounded by they surround just a garden center, sort of a garden in the middle, and they don't have the prominence on the front. You can see this all from the street. And this on the this little one on East De La Guerra was built in 1925 and 26 by Lionel Prius, an architect who was brought in from San Francisco to help with the recovery. And his mimic each other as they all go down this center drive. And he also built the Bothan building. So that's why that's there. And then the one little court that is across the street from the subject property has two little craftsmen facing the building and different style cottages that were built later after behind the two main cottages. And we've designated some of these. These are individually owned. But this was sort of all caused by that cultural resource survey when we had the big project proposed going on at the corner. So here's the bungalow that faces the street. It faces East Figueroa right across from the other bungalows. And here's these two twin vernacular cottages. They're on the Sanborn maps, built by 1930, right behind the subject property. And the question is, are these significant to the site, or just the craftsman is significant? And that's what's the questions before you. Those are the essential facts for you.
Great. All right, so that concludes the presentation. We can go to public comment. Any member of the public in the room wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, can we go to virtual?
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm not seeing any hands raised, but we did receive one letter from Derek Penfield, and with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, so to the commission for questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, what exactly is our purview here? There was an abandoned project, or at least a project that's gone moribund some years ago. And I think those last two cottages are owned by the company that wanted to develop that interior, fairly massive project.
Well, this is on the other side of Figueroa. This is
across the street.
privately owned house with the two cottages. It's for sale right now.
Oh, okay, so
Prospective buyers want to know,
okay,
do
thank
those
you.
cottages
No,
need to
I
stay or
was
not?
I was mistaken, yeah.
Essentially.
Thank you.
Are they significant to the historic site? It's in El Pueblo Viejo. The front building
design
contributes
reviews,
to
yeah.
the design. But
Yeah,
they need some confidence before they sign on if they need to keep these or not. And I can't answer. That's a
yeah.
commission
And
question.
the only thing that had been identified in the previous report for across the street was the front house, the Craftsman house.
When they did the context study
Yeah.
of this area. So you can see in the Sanborn map in the report, there were bungalow courts all over East Figueroa Street. They were really common, and, the police station replaced some. And so some have been deteriorated, so this is like a little tiny half court that's remaining.
And if we
It's empty.
can zoom in, and so there's one other structure too at the way back. There's a dilapidated garage,
yeah.
which is definitely, obviously not.
Yeah, that is not.
But that's at the very back.
You can see it on the Sanborn map more than anything, but it's this back.
And for a little more context as well, I had originally looked at this and had talked to Ms. Hernandez about it a bit too. It was unclear, partly because some of it was most of the existing little cottages are existing, and look like most of the materials are original, except for some other minor additions. I took a look at it today in person as well, but it also is. I was at the time I didn't know if it was. I'd never seen a half court,
Except for basketball.
Exactly, except for basketball, and so it seemed like it was a half of a whole, and I thought maybe that it was even originally had a full court, but now realizing that this is actually just all it ever was this half of our normal court. So
this sort of illustrates how many courts there were. They just put little cottages behind all over, like we're doing now with accessory dwelling
ADU,
units.
yeah, it was like ADU and JADU.
But some of them are
Yeah.
the matching ones and the rhythms are unique.
Yeah. All right. So
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Gordon.
I really struggled with this. I read the HSR. I have trouble recognizing it as a bungalow court. It doesn't have enough characteristics of the type. What I do find is it's a demonstration of what seems to me a very common land use strategy here in Santa Barbara, made possible by the size of the blocks and the depth of the lots. And that this is historically a kind of an example of something that's being called today is called the missing middle. I mean, just provision of housing. But when I look at the significance criteria, I just don't find it meets distinctive characteristics of a type because I don't see the type there. And I'm not sure that it's a unique location or a singular physical characteristic of Santa Barbara. So I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. Other thoughts?
Me too.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
just remind me, is the front building designated on the list? What is it?
Contributing to the historic resources of El Pueblo Viejo.
Well, okay.
So yes, it's a
on the
historic
contributing
resource.
list, but it's not a
Well,
structure
It's a
of merit.
historic resource,
Yeah.
the front, not the two
It doesn't
rear.
say much. It's on a list of 10,000 buildings that contribute to the district.
But it is
It's a
on the list so
historic
that it has to be treated as that.
I understand. I get that totally. But it's
Unlike
not designated.
Unlike the other 10,000
It-
which aren't
yeah.
contributing.
Well, we don't
It's
individually
not-
designate buildings in the district anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I have the same struggle because the front house isn't anything that is terrific either. I mean, there's nothing really special about it just because it's in a district and it has been labeled as contributing. You know, there are 500 of those buildings, I'm guessing, 499, that are in the district that are of, equal character and, average and et cetera. And I agree with Commissioner Jordan that the property is, if it's being characterized as a courtyard, doesn't meet that at all. It's a front house with two little bungalows in the back, done 100 times. So I don't know if it really rises to the level. You can get me on the front house, okay, I'll let that go. I don't think there's much importance about the two rear and especially the garage in addition.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add that I do think bungalow courts are important, and that bungalow courts, when they are full bungalow courts, meet the significance criteria. I just don't think this rises to that level.
I agree.
So if we decided that these weren't important, it does not prejudice any future discussion of bungalow courts, is my point.
Yep. Okay, does that, I saw a lot of nodding heads, is that kind of where everyone's
Question of
going?
staff, what is the appropriate action on this item?
Just say no.
A motion?
Motion that these do not contribute to the
Just say
historic
no.
significance of the
Yes.
site.
Say that again, please.
A motion that these two do not contribute to the so that means we can let them go.
Well, I will
That's all
make
you
that
need.
motion.
Well, maybe Commissioner Lenvick wants to, because he can say no
Maybe,
to something now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will make a motion that the two bungalows in the rear do not contribute.
Second.
All right, I heard Commissioner Butler say second.
Oops.
First. All right, so we have a motion.
He just leaves his microphone on all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
You
There we
just
go.
jump right
It's
in.
fast.
Yeah, I just
Discussion?
want to remind the commission that from Santa Barbara Street to Garden, that whole block across from the police station is under a threat. And there's little bits and pieces of those houses. I'm not really interested in the two that you can't see from the street, but I'm interested in the streetscape and how intact that's going to be in a few years, because there's a big project proposed on the corner that we haven't seen now for who knows what's happened to it, but for many years I know that Commissioner Mahan inveighed against that quite a bit, but I'm just interested in keeping the streetscape intact. Thank you.
And along with that, I think that my sentiments is similar, and that this example, it isn't, the front house is a nice example of a craftsman, and at least has a lot of the quality of originality and materials, and and craftsmanship of the craftsmen that these back structures do not have at all, comparatively. And so while I don't, yeah, so I'm along those lines too, Commissioner Drury, and I think for the front house.
Let's take a vote.
All right, so we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All right, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, on to item, let's see, we are almost half hour behind. On to item 4, this is a continued item for final approval. 630 Chapala Street, 17 West Ortega, and 25 West Ortega Street, located in EPV. The proposal is for construction of a new 3- and 4-story mixed-use development. All existing buildings will be demolished. The project includes 10,100 square feet of commercial space and 29,900 square feet of residential space, consisting of 39 rental units proposed under the AUD incentive program. The existing sandstone wall separating 25 West Ortega Street and 17 West Ortega Street would be reconstructed as a privacy wall along the property line. The proposed density on the 27,400 square foot merged site is 63 dwelling units per acre. The Planning Commission approved the community benefit height exception on August 12th, 2021. To allow the project to exceed 48 feet in height. It's 50 feet, 11 inches proposed. A final approval is requested. Project plans must demonstrate substantial conformance to the plans that received project design approval on September 27th, 2023, which is when the project was last reviewed. This is, let's see, the significance reports, and then I guess that is it. So welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record, we'll go through the motion from last time in the minutes, and then you can have 15 minutes to present.
Tom Meany, architect and owner. Al Windsor, architect.
Oh, here, actually, you can turn on.
There you go. Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
All right. Welcome. All right, and then we'll also, if we have any comments from staff as well, we can go through that. So, okay, so the motion was for project design approval with the following comments. 1, the commission thanks the applicants for listening to the commission and revising the design. Is an excellent design. 2, in general, the project is very supportable and ready for project design approval with a few revisions. 3, identify where the venting, sorry, let me just make some notes here as we go. Okay, so where the venting will be located on either elevation or roof plan. 4, adjust the window and awning colors to be brighter, bring back different color options. 5, restudy the 3rd floor corner opening and balcony, either make the design different than the bays below or align with the bays below. 6, study the use of a pendant light or another iron light at the corner balcony. 7, on the front elevation on Chapala Street, adjust the drapes to be lower than the plaster molding. 8, the courtyard walls are generally supportable as either plaster or stone. 9, the study a solution for the fire screen check valve and appropriate screening. 10, the project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met. Project blah, blah, blah. And then the motion was by Ensberg. Second was by Drury, 800. McClure was absent. The motion carried. All right. That's official. All right, so if you can walk us through the design, showing all the details in that for final approval, all those things, as well as answering how you addressed the comments in particular that we made from last time.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah, we're going to start with an overview of the site design and then go to the specifics from there. So Sam will start us off.
Okay.
So we'll go to L1, there you go. So the project is consistent with what we used and got approved at the PDA preliminary. We are using substantial queen palms that exist on the site for the large planters in the middle of the courtyard, and also supplementing the king palm row along the Chapala Street side. The Chapala Street guidelines have been followed in terms of hardscape. Our main hardscape has not changed. We're mostly using a pattern of terracotta tile, saltillo tile with a Fossil Creek stone paver as a border and as a kind of framing element for a center mosaic tile piece and inlay. Along Ortega Street, we are adding more jacaranda street trees, and we have green palms on the inner parking lot on the east side that address the east elevation. The landscape is, of course, significantly sustainable in terms of low water use. The pots are going to be, interior pots will be Gladys McBean. We have some tile features in the planters as well as the fountain that kind of accentuate the inlay that's in the center of the court paseo. Other than that, we've kind of done a good job detailing things in the rest of the plan. We have benches that are throughout the project that show in that picture on the right. Other than that, Tom, I think maybe you could take it to the rest of the building and other details per the minutes.
Great, thanks. So just as a point of reference, the top left building we're calling Building A, top right is B, bottom right is C, which is one you guys saw most recent, and then bottom left is D. And then initially from the beginning, our objective was to have each building have a slightly different characteristic without feeling contrived. So we've kind of gone with a uniform color palette of blues, greens, burgundy, and like school bus yellow, and then created variations of color combinations within that unifying palette. And then each building has very subtle variations in terms of like eave detail and some other details as well, but that was the intention going in. So we've got some elevations and models which show the materials for each building, and we can just basically walk around the perimeter is probably the easiest thing to do. So the top image is Building A on the left and actually Building D on the right with the bridge going in off of Chapala Street into our courtyard. So Building A, I actually brought along samples which are the same as what's on the board here, which the colors are probably a little more accurate. So this is not new information, it's just hands-on information. So Building A has two different Talavera tile combinations. The corner building has one of these tiles, and the one building that fronts and turns the corner is the second variation. But so Building A, we've got like that olive green window color with the burgundy curtains. We've got 4x8s at
Oh, yeah. City TV, if you could jump to the camera here. Perfect.
Yeah, great.
All
So
right.
we've got 4x8 rafter tails at 24 on center around the perimeter of the upper floor. The corner building has a more classical heavy timber.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
You can pull up the other screen now. All right.
We'll be coming back to those.
Yeah.
And the corner building has, as you can see from the bottom left, a more heavy timber, classical, massive cornice detail that turns the corner. Additionally, each building has a slightly variation on the picket details. So each building has a slightly different wrought iron vocabulary as well. So, and then the bottom left here, can you zoom on these three models, Al? So this is basically our corner building. Oh, we skipped ahead.
It takes a while to catch up.
You gotta go back to 36. There we go. Okay, now scroll down, I think we'll be there. Yeah, that's good. So it shows basically the two different eave details, the colors of the canvas on the two upper stories on each of the side buildings, and our tile skirts that wrap around the corner. And then to the right there, that shows the bridge coming in off of Chapala Street to the courtyard, and the bridges also have a slightly different color variation. The bridges are like a deep blue window with a blue awning, and then like a burgundy color Gladys McBean pot buried into the upper wall section. And then we use probably 4 or 5 different plaster grill details around the project. So this shows one of those plaster grill details as well. So why don't we go around the corner to, and we can come back to we can come back to that one because it shows the other building.
Around the corner?
Yeah, so here's building A and B combined. Go to the top first. So it shows our combination of colors of these two buildings side by side. In building B, we have Once again, the windows are in the blue-green color palette. We've got the Talavera tile, which is a consistent tile that we're using throughout the project because it has nice, rich colors, and then the Gladding McBean pot that we're using as well. So our arcade is dimensionally the same as it was before. They're 11 feet tall. The arches, they're probably 12 feet deep, and the bay width is about 9. Now, each one of the bays, we're showing one of these little star fixtures that hang down on that module. It's shown there on the bottom left. And I want them to hang down below the top of the arch so these little sparkles will dance down the street, which would be kind of fun. So then on the bridge colors.
And then City TV, if you can go to the desk here. Just get a quick shot of this, and we'll swap it out to the next one. Oops.
So these are our bridge colors with the awnings, the window, and the Gladding McBean pot. It's typical from both bridges. So when we go back, we'll go back to the middle, this one here to show the bridge.
Yeah, where's the wine? Where's my dinner?
So this shows the bridge come in off of Ortega Street with the same color palette of the blue on blue, a different plaster grill detail going into the bridge, and the buried terracotta pot up above. And the unit to the left, once again, has that same dimensional arcade that goes down the street. Here we're doing with, actually it's more the gold Gladding McBean pots in those buried second floor decks. And with those light fixtures that dance down the arcade, it could be a fun building. And once again, so this is now building B, so it has a slightly different picket detail. But like I say, it's fairly subtle from one building to the next, but they do have a slightly different detail for building B as opposed to the other buildings. So then the bottom left here, we're turning the corner, looking down the alleyway. So that's the corner of building B. Showing how the jacaranda are looking great, Al. Yeah. So that's our detail going down the street.
June 2nd.
Yeah, so now let's go to building C, which is the one that we worked on with you guys most recently. So this one, we're kind of breaking our palette a little bit. We have the sage green awning. Our curtains are the vertical stripes of also different shades of like a gray-green.
City TV, if you could go jump back to the desk now. Perfect. Thank you. All right, and back to the screen.
And back to the screen. And then the tile skirts that we had discussed at the earlier meeting, we're using the same Talavera material, but a quilt of different blues and creams, which they're kind of famous for that color palette. And so we wanted to take that same flavor and really accentuate the tile sections on this building. And here, these windows are black. We're trying to make them look a little more industrial, if I can say that word, than the blues and greens on the other buildings. What happened?
I don't know. We're here somewhere. I think we're right here.
And once again, we have,
Sorry.
yeah.
It's a little squirrely.
And then we have a plaster grill detail on that corner with the projecting balcony that turns the corner. We have a little more of a simplified light fixture on this building. The other ones we're using fairly large Steve Handelman fixtures that are between 18 and 21 inches tall. And each of our corner fixtures, we've got 3 streets that come in from the street, 3 paseos, and each paseo has a corner fixture that's a good scale fixture. So here we've got these gates that come into the private patios, and each one has a little more of a contemporary light fixture, but it's hand forged iron with seated glass. So I think it'll still feel very nice.
Around the corner?
Yeah.
We have a larger picture of that light fixture on our landscape drawings.
Yeah, the bottom right, when you zoom in on that.
I know there's an easy way.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're
It's
handling
called
it.
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it shows that corner balcony that we talked about, so we played around with that a little bit. And once again, this building has a slightly different iron detail than the others, different color awning, different color window, and then, like I say, having some fun with the blue and white Talavera tile. Kind of like the way this building's turned out. Okay, then the corner wrap around to building D. My bag of tricks. Like Mary Poppins. So this building is basically green on green, like an olive green window and or kind of deeper olive green awning.
All right, thank you, City TV.
Don't even have to ask.
They're learning the rhythm.
And this is the building that really encompasses and embraces that reclaimed sandstone wall. So it's definitely going to be part of our overall color palette for this building. So can we go back to the image? So there's our sandstone wall, the awnings, and then we also have different places on this building where we integrated a more hammered sandstone, that window on the top section, once again kind of reinforcing this sandstone theme. So in places we've got cut sandstone, and maybe we can salvage the existing material or reuse it, but in any case it's going to be a little more refined. The existing stone is really coarse, which is great, but trying to work a window opening with that rough material might be a stretch. So if we can reuse the same material, great. If not, we use something very similar to that, but it's just tying into that, the color palette of the olive and the sandstone color. Can you go around the corner? So this is building D again.
Back to
Yeah, then I think the first sheet kind of goes back to it. So nothing's really changed on the exterior of the building. Yeah, let's do that. So we've already seen the one on the bottom right. So here's the leading edge of building D, also showing the paseo into the courtyard. And once again, we're really limited to planting around the building by our civil engineers, so I think we'll be doing a lot of these, gladding McBean pots throughout the project, just another way to bring in some color to the street and to the interior as well. So basically, that's what we're doing in terms of colors and finishes, mixing some things up without feeling, like I say, contrived. If we want to go through some specific details in the plan set, or what do you want to go from here? What's most easy?
Maybe let's, probably jump to details and just kind of do a fairly quick scroll through, and then
we can just pull out some highlights.
We were able to. It is a 180-page set, so
so far. This is the HLC version.
Last agenda item at 450.
Yeah, 449.
Okay, so this shows the eave detail, our 4x8s, which is actually on building D and B, showing some of our picket details adjacent as well, and our stone detail on building D on the bottom right. And then we also have the coarse stone with some small windows in the middle section. We're going to use the terracotta lintel over the top of it. And I found this really cool cast sandstone medallion that's going to be buried into that sandstone wall in that location. Again, we should start scrolling down. There's a detail of the Gladdy McBean pot that gets buried into the wall. Up above that, to the upper left, is an iron grill that's going on building B. So we have a pair of those down at the street. And then to the right of that is one of our plaster grills. And here, the bottom right shows the eave detail on the corner of building A. Those are 8x12s that are about 16 or 18 inches on center. So it's a pretty massive detail. Bottom left shows a different eave detail that's on one of the adjacent buildings, and then above that shows one of the variety of iron details on one of the buildings. Here's a couple more details showing some iron windows and plaster grills. And then building C's eave detail, which is the most simple of the, I'm sorry, building B, which is the most simple. Here's some more iron details. Bottom left is the bridge balcony, so we have that happening in two different locations. It's just a lot of fun. Anything really sexy. Bicycle racks. I think that's about it in terms of our interesting details.
All right. And then maybe touch on there was the venting question.
Yeah, what is that question?
I think it was probably Commissioner Lendick.
Oh, yeah.
Stuck all over the face of the building.
Yeah, there's a shielded detail that the builder that's doing our project is doing the building behind Staples. And so he's got a detail that's like a shielded.
Plaster?
Yeah, but we're trying to minimize those to the street as much as possible, bring them to the courtyard. So most of them come into the courtyard, but there's a few of them that come out to that street.
So where is that detail?
I don't think it's in the set. Actually, I know it's not in the set.
All right.
We've been really tough on venting for restrooms, laundry rooms, washer dryers in the past. Applicants have been successful at it.
At being tough. Yeah.
We don't get any
Santa Barbara Street.
Yeah, we'll do it in comments. Yeah, so other questions? Oh, wait, sorry, not questions. I was just wanting to get you to point out those things. Okay, and then let's go, yeah, so does that complete your presentation? All right, great. So let's go to public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to comment on this item? All right, not seeing anyone.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. So to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
We got vice chair, and then we'll go to.
No, I don't need to block it.
And then we'll go to Commissioner Drury.
Okay. First question is, on one of the building views, I think it was A and D, well, I guess the question is, are the gutters and downspouts copper? It looked like bright red, like it was painted, so I just wanted to confirm there's copper, okay. And second of all, is there a detail of the awning mounting? Sometimes your awnings look like they were a little bit too high, so I wanted to see.
This is a discussion we have before in terms of appropriate height. So when we're showing on the elevations, can you pull up an elevation to kind of show the relation to it?
What is our usual request, that the top of the valance be the head of the window, something like that?
I think there's a varied request because there's also varied historic. So it depends on whose the request is coming from as to
who the argument
yeah. Because there's usually an argument about this. Because if you look in this black and white historic
I'm sorry, I brought
photos.
it up.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good argument to have. I think it's done both ways historically, and I think there's different
That
reasons
looks okay.
to do it.
Yeah, we're kind of
So.
starting with the top of the window. But from here, of course, you never see it from this perspective.
Well, and is there a valance to those awnings?
That doesn't look like it has one.
Yeah.
So then that would be a question of the awning detail, right?
So it could be a comment.
Out brackets and things like that.
Okay.
I think that 3D of this view shows that a little bit better. You can see.
Your microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, we could see, there it is, there.
Yeah, but like I said, we don't have a detail.
Of that, yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, on the east elevation of Building C, can we look at that, please?
Someone else, right?
It's, so on the left, there's those three windows, and then there's that detail of where
The corbel?
the corbel.
Plaster corbel?
Yes, maybe it's just a drawing thing, because in other pictures, it doesn't look like it's quite so pinched, where the balcony doesn't come quite so low to the bottom window. Is that just a drawing?
Can you hover over where we think?
It's about 18 inches between plaster, this way here.
That,
Yeah, it's just space between the top of the second window and the balcony above. It looks like it's really narrow, and I think it may be just a drawing thing, because other iterations that seem to be a little.
or is it underneath the balcony, you're saying?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well, that's a good point, though. What is that ceiling to floor? Because that almost looks like it's.
It's probably 18 or 20 inches.
Okay.
Of plaster
'Cause
space.
So
it doesn't look like that.
So it's a
though,
drawing
does it?
thing.
I don't.
It's a shadow.
Yeah, is it just the shadow
It's
that's
a
doing
shadow.
that? Because then it does look kind of skinny, but it might just be an optical illusion.
No.
So the window head height is at the bottom, is at the ceiling?
No, it's 6 inches below the ceiling.
See that? It seems like.
The window's at 9, the ceiling's 9.6. and then our floor thickness is probably 15. So it's 15 plus 6.
Okay. And I think I know what you're saying, Commissioner. It
It-
seems like to me, too, that looks like
Yeah,
it's.
so
it-
that's a shadow. That's the cast shadow in the drawings.
It's a gray color, so it's a
Oh,
shadow.
yes. Okay, thank you.
And, well, can we take a look at that in perspective, too? Because it might just be, also be the elevation rendering of it. Yeah, because it looks
Oh, there we go.
visually bigger.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Commissioner McClure?
Yeah, are all the pots have drainage?
Yes, we have drainage and irrigation.
And how do you, if somebody pushes on the pot, is that a big problem? Does it tend to be a very rigid connection, or is there,
You mean the ones in the building?
well, maybe
The ones
just.
on the Paseo, is that what you're talking about?
If somebody gave that a good shove, is that kind of really wreck things, or?
It's kind of locked in, yeah,
Mhm.
as opposed to letting them just drain onto
Yeah,
the
which is
Paseo,
not
which is,
good.
which is
Yeah.
a real nuisance. We wanted to direct it
Mhm.
into the drain system.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if someone really hits it
Uh-huh.
with
Uh-huh.
a hard thing, it may need to be replaced.
And then your fountain, is the fountain pump remote into some equipment room, or?
It is in the planter on the west side of the courtyard, in the actual soil
Okay.
with the plant material.
Uh-huh.
So it's buried in the vault.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, through the chair to Commissioner McClure. Just a reminder, because you were absent from the last meeting and you'll have to
Oh,
abstain
yeah, I
from
forgot
question
to
comments.
ask that.
If
Yeah.
you have any comments that you'd like to strategically frame as questions now.
Now's the time. Yeah, okay, that was, had forgotten to ask at the beginning, too. Okay, other questions? Commissioner Lenvik, and then Commissioner,
Yes, one of our prior questions was, or suggestions was solve the problem of the fire sprinkler double check valve, and how have you done that and where you show that?
I think that's on the Chapala Street side, and it is the irrigation plant, let's see.
Yeah.
It
Basically,
should
with
be
the
parallel.
sandstone, can you get it like one of the corners looking up Chapala
Parallel
Street?
with the sandstone. Let me see here.
It's on your L1 or L4?
It might be on like L2, which would be the irrigation plant. I don't know if we show the big
It's a
fire
lot of
sprinkler.
sheets in here. The sandstone wall returns along Chapala Street 10 feet, and it's about 5 feet off of the sidewalk, so we're sticking it over there.
Let's go up to L2.
Bottom left.
That's now one or two more sheets up right there, maybe. Go to the bottom left corner. There's a lot of plumbing right there, Commissioner Lendick, you're right. But we do have a planter and a planted area in that corner. Here, the connections
Yeah.
that corner.
So there's a section where the sandstone wall is about 4 or 5 feet off the sidewalk, so it's gonna be,
It's held back, so we do have a planter area.
can you zoom in there?
Blow that up a little bit. Just hit the Z key and then draw a marquee around it.
I'm afraid to do anything here. It's not like my computer at work.
So can you hover over where that
So the
check
main
valve is?
backflow preventer is parallel to the recessed stone wall that's back of the sidewalk, as Tom said.
And can you hover over it? Or circle it? So, and where is the sandstone wall?
it's basically just to the left of that blue, yeah, right there.
It's right there in that offset column, so it's back 5 feet. So there's some images of halftone planting material that's in that planter. They're shown as, I think,
Pardon my interruption, if
Maria?
the applicant could speak into the microphone. Thank you.
there's about 4 plants that are surrounding that confluence of red, which is the irrigation main line, and then the main fire line is the blue line.
Okay, can you zoom in
Drip
even
line.
more and then, because I'm sure, so, because the question's gonna be, how are you screening the backflow?
And you see there's plant material in the front there.
So,
I'm
what,
pretty sure
yeah,
that's-
can you hover over those plants that are screening? Those 3 in a row? Is that
Yeah,
what it
we
is?
might need to go to the planting plan, yeah.
Okay.
Use the cursor.
Go, I think that's L3.
Mr. Chair, you have a moment?
Sure.
No, that's L1, so let's go 2 more down, 3 more down, one more. There it is. Now go back to that same corner, the bottom left.
There we go. Nice.
There we
Okay, so
go.
now where's the backflow?
Here's a sandstone wall.
And there's a backflow that's parallel to that wall and one that's smaller that's perpendicular to that wall.
Sidewalk.
And those plants in there are intended to hide that configuration of plumbing.
Gotcha.
So it's about 5 feet from the face of the sidewalk and the face of the sandstone wall.
Italian El Casa Blue is probably about 30 inches tall with a flower. The Rafa Umbellata are behind there, that are a little taller, 4 or 5 feet, but that's behind the wall.
And is there any reason why it's perpendicular? That the one that's perpendicular that's coming out to the sidewalk? Is that?
Other than just direct hydrology from the meter, no, but it could be spun certainly 90
That was
degrees.
my question.
Yeah.
Can you parallel those?
It could parallel with that and be parallel to the wall,
Yeah.
offset, certainly.
So it's less visible. It's perpendicular.
You're seeing the
To
whole
some
face
degree,
of it
yeah.
versus just a little bit, and it's hidden from both sides. So we'll,
Yeah.
The attempt is
do you
to
have
screen
a-
it.
And do you have a perspective that shows that actual condition or no?
I don't think we do. No, we've not,
Yeah, it's
we've not drawn that corner.
well, at least the plans.
It's going to be on our list.
I don't,
Duly noted. Express
Yeah.
that corner
Okay.
more
Any other questions?
I
Commissioner
want
Ensberg and
to
then
finish
Commissioner-
a comment on this. I don't find that
Are we
there's been
questions
a.
or comment?
Well, it's questions.
Questions.
Stick to questions, and then we'll get into comments. So, Commissioner Ensberg, question.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. Could we look at the, I just have 2 little things, the Chapala Street elevation where you have the stone, recessed stone. I think we've talked about this
You can hit
before.
Control 0. Go back to a full sheet.
Yeah, there it is.
I'll get this next time, for sure.
That recessed wall to the right of the arch.
Right here?
So the upper right section of the elevation. Where the sandstone.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could talk about that again. It's like this is the only place this occurs, I think. And so just maybe convince me, please.
Yeah, this came up as a question at an earlier meeting. Yeah, so the thought behind that was basically to create, I mean, this elevation, I wanted to break it into sections so that the piece on the left could read as more of a standalone symmetrical piece, and just to break up the mass of the length of that building. So I thought by taking some of that sandstone, so this is the coarse stuff here, and just trying to integrate it into a piece to where it kind of creates separation between the building on the left and the building on the right, that could be a fun way to introduce some of that sandstone.
Okay. Okay, I hear you. Then the other thing, this is minor, but, you know, everything matters, is those benches that you have. Can you tell me what was your thought around it? They seem sort of Victorian to me, as opposed to like a wooden bench like the ones that we used to have on State Street that had the, you know, the backs with the undulating curve in them. Why you picked that particular style as opposed to something a little bit more mission style, if you would?
I think you make a good point. We could certainly look at studying, you know, a different style bench. I think this was just, you know, a attempt to look at a more historic bench.
Yeah, something historic, but, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's roll into comments. So this is here to us for final approval, and I think there's going to be some comments on terms of what, some pieces that we still need as well. So we can roll in with those. If you can also relate or tie your comments to anything, those specifics that you want to see, but also the question of answering the various comments that we had from last time as well. And actually, before we jump into that comments, I had one more quick question that I didn't see an answer to, was the corner that the symbol of the VW, the cartouche. Yeah, did you have a detail of that? And part of it is on the rendering, it folds the corner too. And is that how you're going to do it, or are you propping it, or how are you?
Yeah, and we're going to make it out of that GFRC material, so Pacific Register can make that for us, and so then we'll just cut it in half and.
Okay, so it's gonna be a folded wrap. Got it. Okay. Okay. But there is.
It's not going to be two-tone like that.
Okay.
Al.
It's in relief.
Yeah, it's just relief.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's roll into comments.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House, and then.
Gentlemen,
Commissioner
I'm
Drury.
not going to mince my words. This is a beautiful building. It's very exciting. I really love it. It's going to be wonderful.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
My comments are much along the same line. I haven't seen a project that's been so carefully thought out with a great deal of affection for the site. I'm really thrilled. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Butler.
we often talk of poetry. I think this has some whimsy to it. So
Yeah,
maybe
especially
we're
that
moving
that
direction.
bulbous
So,
single-sided blaster
Yeah.
corbel.
exactly. So I enjoyed the variation among the various buildings and how you've basically made that work, the design of the ironworks, et cetera. So yeah, I think this will be an excellent contribution to the corner.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Ensberg, do you want to?
Yes. Shall I just pile on?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go for
yeah,
it.
it's, you know, I've loved this project since day one, and you guys have just really brought it home. It's an incredible, beautiful, beautiful project. And I love the way you did the coining, you know, the stone, the coining on those windows, like the one over at the courthouse, the little tiny one up there. I love that, and I find it to be just perfect. I think the colors are great, the way that you've implemented them around and, you know, mixed it up, makes it very fun. And of course, the Gladding McBean is, you know, such a great product, so and so Santa Barbara, so that's fantastic too. And then my only little comment is just, you know, the benches, if they were, I think, a little bit more, you know, like over at the Natural History Museum, there's a bench there. There's lots of examples, but I think something a little bit more along those lines might fit better, since you've just, you know, with all the careful detail that you've done. And then I'm still just, it's not a big deal, but that stone recess still kind of feels awkward to me, but I wouldn't, you know, I'll just leave that to you to do as you wish.
Lindsay.
All right.
And thank you so much. You really made it a pleasure to work with you on this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lenvik, did you want to roll into this?
Yes, I have a couple of points. I think the awnings over the windows are mounted much too high. They've got to drop down, and particularly when you have windows which are 9-foot head heights, and you're setting the awning basically at that head height. I don't think the awnings can be doing much for the interior of the space, but it's not comfortable, it's not traditional. The awnings have to drop down more and be more in human scale, at least. And the other thing is, I don't think you have solved the problem of the fire double check valve. When I look at the site plan on A2.1, the space which is available there is, I don't believe, adequate for the double check valve and planting. I mean, you're talking about that space right there. I guess where the hatch line is really sidewalk.
No, the hatch line is planting.
Is it planting?
The
Yeah.
dashed line is sidewalk and the hatch is planting. And
It's required setback from the
see.
city to push us back.
So you're not all along the front of the building, then you've got landscaping.
We do.
Yes.
Correct. And then that hatch should go all the way back to touch that,
Yeah.
that stone wall.
I don't feel comfortable with the solution to concealing the double check valve or making it less obvious, or you can't conceal them, obviously, but making them less obvious. Your drawing in which you show the blue lines and the red lines has a double check valve right up against the building, and of course they're away from the building, so they can be serviced and such. And I'm just concerned that we're going to be happy when we get out there and see the building built in the double check valve in its location, and the landscaping not doing its job as intended. So those are my two comments.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I want to reiterate what my fellow commissioners have said. It's a wonderful project. And my comment is that I very much applaud the strategy of using common materials and color palette and using variations within that palette to distinguish different parts of the building. There's tremendous pressure in Santa Barbara these days to build bigger block-scaled buildings. And I think that this project is a demonstration of a very good strategy for articulating a big building in a way that is consistent with the character of Santa Barbara. That's important as we deal with the pressures that are coming. So my compliments to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? So I agree with my fellow commissioners. You've done an absolutely excellent job, and I think it's very much an exemplar of how to do a very good and large building in Santa Barbara. The few other pieces I see that are missing are the venting detail per our discussion, and I would say also it's good that you're going to have them towards the inner courtyard. You still are going to see it though on angle fairly strongly. So I don't think I think what does that composition look like? Where do they pop out, or at least get an idea, general idea? I think it'll be good and important because it will be a public shot.
Is there a good example of this that I could?
So I think what we've seen we have seen things shrouded in different ways, but some of the problems we've seen has been that when they're not drawn or shown, they end up being these random, things popping out. And I know that you aren't that type of architect and project, and you're our owner too, so it's great. I don't think it'll end up being that, but usually we want to see them on the elevation just to say, where is that popping out? Is it awkwardly close to this window or this other thing? So that and especially in shots or the public will see.
Right.
I think that would satisfy. And then if it's, we've seen them done with as a plaster, hood and hid. We've also seen them done as copper, which pops them out. So then it's a question of how you do it, or do you just do it and paint it? But even just painting it as a metal, like galvanized or whatever, even that would, the composition of where they're popping out,
Right.
It at least helps to make it go away.
Yeah, I don't want to be surprised either.
Yeah. So, yeah, and obviously now you've got a quite substantial set, so it's probably easy enough to figure out now at the end here. So I think that was one thing, was the venting detail and location, and via elevation would probably make the most sense. And then awning mounting details. My comment would be that your awnings may be just right for actually opening out windows and needing to clear, depending on what the reach and everything else is. And I think to the historic example, so while I can also see dropping them, and if you're going to in-swing, or if you have a big enough throw that it doesn't get in the way and it still works, then great. I think that there's plenty of historic arguments to be made for awnings at all different levels.
Or the vent panels don't go all the way to the top of the window. They've got.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a transom or whatever. So there's a bunch of ways of doing it, I think, and I think part of it is going to be picking a proper historic way of getting that to work, and with your awning details. So whether, I know it's pretty fairly simple, where you're showing currently rendering and wrapping the awnings. I don't know if you necessarily are going to be doing that.
We haven't thought that through.
Yeah, exactly. So as you think it through and as you pick things,
thought you were done.
wanting to see a detail with that. You got a heck of a lot of details, so I get it. But I think that's one, or one of a couple, if you do different versions, need to be shown or worked out. And then to Commissioner Lenfield's comment, the screening of the fire check valve, double check valve, is also important. So looking at how you're going to do that and in an effective way. And then the note on the bench style being more EPV Spanish was also one. And then I would say for the corner cartouche, just probably some simple detail showing the relief and how that's going to look and work, just would be important. So I think those are the of all. Oh, Commissioner, Ensberg.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I just, not that these double check valves are really, I leave that to Commissioner Lenvik, but are they drawn to scale on there, on the drawings, or is that the actual size of it? So we're really seeing it in
I think we'll
terms-
check all that, but I don't.
I would
know for
double
sure.
check it.
Okay.
We'll check with the mechanical and make sure the
Because
size. is
maybe it is, maybe it's okay. And then the other thing is, I think the question that Commissioner McClure had is if it was possible for them to run parallel as opposed to perpendicular, maybe that would help out.
I think we'll
your
study that
situation.
space.
Okay, all right.
In more detail.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would like to see
Vice
this
Chair House.
return to consent in whatever, 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever works to review those details.
And everyone comfortable with that? I think that I'm comfortable with it. Okay.
And pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, would you mind summarizing the comments
Sure.
for the record?
Okay. So I guess the motion would be to continue it to consent with the following comments.
That is my motion.
And for final.
It's continue, you can't final it and then continue it to consent, so it'd be continued to
To
consent
for final, yeah. With the following comments, first, to thank the applicant for a very beautiful and well-designed project with excellent details as well as
whimsy.
We'll throw whimsy in there. Excellent details with poetry and whimsy. And then with these additional details for final approval. So for venting details of the dryer and other mechanical venting, as well as showing their location and elevation. Details for the corner cartouche of the VW sign. The awning, for awning mounting details, we'll just say awning mounting details of the, or awning and mounting details of the fabric awnings for the windows. To restudy the screening of the fire double check valve. So it's screened appropriately with including looking at in which direction it goes for optimal screening. As well as a bench, to change the bench style to be more EPV Spanish. And that looks like it.
I think so.
All right.
A second?
And, all right, we've got a motion by Vice Chair House, a second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion. Any other discussion? All right.
Is that a 2-week continuance? Okay.
Does that work
2 week.
for the applicant?
It does not need to be date certain, but if it's a 2-week continuance, does the applicant think that they could resubmit by Monday? If not, we could continue to 4 weeks.
I mean, it's the check valve is probably the biggest thing we have to dig through.
Yeah, let's just make sure, so I think 4 weeks would be better.
Okay. Or you could just say for continuances, and if they get it in.
Continue indefinitely. We
Yeah,
could
and
do
then that way, if they get it in on Monday, great. If not, okay. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, and seconder. All right. Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Abstain.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
gentlemen.
I mean, I really enjoyed the process.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Tell the city
Can we,
council
can we quote you on that? All right. That's right, exactly. It's good. We're gonna put it all over social media. Okay, so why don't we take a 5-minute quick break, and then we'll do our final item.
Okay.
Which very full room. All right, calling back to order. Historic Landmarks Commission, April 10th, 2024. All right, so we are on to item 5. This is a discussion on State Street Master Plan process. This is a facilitated discussion by the Historic Landmarks Commission Chair on topics under HLC's purview related to the State Street Master Plan. The Commission's comments will be submitted to the State Street Advisory Commission for consideration. And then we have our staff memo to go through. So let's see, we had, this is just the attachments. Okay, so maybe we've already gone through, I know, let's see, Commissioner Jordan was, I think, the only one.
Pardon my interruption,
Absent,
Mr.
yeah.
Chair. Just to kind of clarify what is included in this staff memo, it's just a collection of documents that we've received from the commissioners, records of past minutes, and the information requested from the State Street Advisory Committee and State Street Master Plan staff. So this isn't anything that you need to go over for this discussion. It's up to your discretion.
Yeah, okay, great. So there, yeah, and I think that for the best use of our time, because so Commissioner McClure has to leave at 4:45. Okay, so we'll make sure that we get all of your input for sure, and then we're going to be ending by 5. So, and then that just as sort of as a note.
Is that when the lights go out?
That's right. The microphones get cut. And so, as part of this is a continued conversation. Commissioner Jordan wasn't here, and I wasn't able to read or summarize his comments, so he is here now, so now I don't have to. We'll let it come from him. But I do want to give you an initial time and to kick off with it. And as well, we don't need to do the whole presentation and walkthrough. I think we can scroll through to things that we want to talk about and discuss as well.
I will try to be brief. I had sent a memo as public comment to the State Street Advisory Committee after their March 18th meeting. So that's public comment material. I have some comments I'd like to make here today, in which, for the sake of brevity, I've kind of organized as bullet points. So if you'll allow me, and they're kind of general comments.
And actually, sorry, before you start, I'm wondering, should we just open public comment so that we have, and then bring it back so that we can, so, because I don't think we don't need to go through, last time we went through, scrolled through, so we don't need to do that, so maybe we just open public comment, and so seeing no one in the room, we can go virtual.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence, so we'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
And Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
Just for procedure, I was wondering, and I had sent an email about this as to if we could possibly, or why we are possibly not doing it this way, but to do it our normal way, which is we had the presentation, then we had public comment, and then we normally would have each of the commissioners would ask whatever questions they had. And then after that, we would go into comments from each commissioner, and then we would have the comments, and then at the final, we would do our sort of summary straw poll consensus. Is there, that seems to make a lot of sense to me, and that's how we always typically do things, so I didn't know, I just wanted to bring that up.
Oh, yeah, good, that's a good point to bring up the question. So I think the reason why, there isn't an applicant in the same way. We're reviewing the SSAC's presentation materials, and providing our comments to them on what our thoughts are for various things. And so because there's sections and chunks to discuss, it was set up that way to discuss as sort of general topics more, and to give feedback on, especially the visuals, instead of slicing it at the individual commissioner for comments all the way along. Instead, try to tackle areas, which we've done this before, where we try to tackle, and especially with State Street discussions and things like that, where we try to look at furnishings or look at whatever and have a discussion and try to get a consensus around commentary that way, as opposed to individuals all saying their piece which is commenting on every single piece. So it would be like the first block, the block type A, block type B, block type C that we looked at, or then the different numbered blocks. Each person would have to comment on each one of those things and then comment on all the other things. So it just seemed like the way in which we have done before for trying to get consensus and commentary around one thing and then another thing and then another thing, as opposed to trying to have individual comment on, 15 different things. That was the reasoning for trying to set it up that way. But the goal is to get good feedback on consensus
I understand.
items for HLC.
Yes, I understand that, but I think that our normal process, each person has something in particular. We don't all comment on every single thing. Each one of us has sort of a, they might just want to say, slide 4, why did you do it like that? Or, I didn't see it as each one of us going, because last time that was the direction it was going, like take each slide and everybody say what you like and what you don't like. That seemed very laborious to me anyway, as opposed to our normal process, which is you would just ask the questions that you were interested in, and then you would give comments where you felt they were appropriate. So anyway, but if you want to do it a different way.
Yeah. Commissioner Lembeck and then Commissioner Jordan.
The problem is you're assuming that me, as the HLC rep on the State Street Advisory Committee, actually knows what's going on.
Well, true.
And to be frank, I don't. And Anthony is part of a team that's putting together some schemes. I don't know that even Anthony knows what's going on. I could be wrong, and then I shouldn't speak for you, but to be frank, I don't know if we ever are going to get to the point where we're going to raise our hand and say, I want to see, whatever on State Street. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. So to have me make a presentation is futile. Now, what I did do is I printed out the 3 plans that were presented as part of the State Street Advisory Committee hearing 3 weeks ago. I think it was the 400 block, the 800 block, and the 1200 block. I printed those out so they could be seen, and we can put them so they can be, put up on the screen or whatever. And since we're all kind of design freaks, we can see something that was at least being proposed in some way, shape, or form by staff as a result of Anthony and the 7 or 8 other architects and landscape architects that were scheming this. And we can say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, or I know it's a bad idea, and we can debate whether or not a 2-lane traffic is good or bad, or we can debate whatever, but I think that some things we're not going to have any control over. We're not going to have any control over traffic. I don't think we're going to have any control over whether or not the streets is all one level. I don't think we're going to have any control over, whether or not a Paseo takes out a building and punches through the State Street. There are things that we'd have no control over, and probably are so far down the line that we'll never see them in our lifetime. But if we are hoping that the city council will sit down one day and say, we're going to do 4 blocks, between Can Perdido and whatever. We're going to do 4 blocks, and we like the schemes that have been shown on those 4 blocks. Let's proceed with that. And that may be all they say. They're not going to talk about how.
Mr. Chair, a suggestion.
Commissioner Jordan,
A suggestion for how we proceed. To my knowledge, there has never been a short discussion or meeting about State Street since this whole thing started. There's enough design talent on this commission that we could argue the details of any one block. We could do a 48-hour charrette. My suggestion is that what this commission needs to do is arrive at some statement of general principles and assumptions that will guide us in how we look at material coming forward. So that I made a series of comments here that I'm trying to frame as principles that we can use to make discerning judgments as plans emerge. And I think it's arriving at those principles and assumptions and statements of what we are interested in that are most valuable for the HLC to do for the city right now.
Okay, so why don't we do this, because we have to pick a way of doing it, of doing things. Otherwise, we'll just talk about how we might do things. So let's start with Commissioner Jordan going through his comments, because he wasn't here last time. And then we'll see about how we might tackle this. And we might even be able to do both and if we want to do a quick, everyone gets 2 minutes to say what they are thinking and what's important and whatever. And then if we have consensus, we can try to get consensus that way. And then we can also have discussion. So we've got this hour, so let's go.
Thank you. And for the sake of brevity and to accommodate staff, I'm offering these as bullet points, and I can expand on any of them in questions. First of all, State Street is not broken. It is not derelict and in need of being reinvented. It has good bones. So work with what's already there. The Paseo system, the informal landscaping, the existing materials and color palettes. The drawings presented at the March 18th State Street Advisory Committee meeting, public meeting, were very helpful and long overdue. They are true tools for thinking. The team did what good architects and planners do. They help people imagine urban space. I also believe we saw only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the drawings and ideas generated by that team. And we might discuss why we only saw the tip of the iceberg. There is more there, more, for example, that can help us think about how multiple modes of mobility can coexist on State Street. Pedestrians belong on the sidewalk. With the exception of baby strollers and wheelchairs, anything with wheels belongs in the street. Outdoor dining and so-called parklets are not the same thing. You can have one without the other. The erection of any large, solid, heavy construction on State Street, anything that cannot be dismantled at the end of the day, is subject to design review and approval by the HLC. The roles and responsibilities of the HLC are defined in the city charter and cannot be dismissed. So the HLC has an undeniable and unavoidable role to play going forward. Development is not incompatible with what makes Santa Barbara special, but development poorly managed can do irreparable harm to what makes this city special. Design guidelines and review boards are not obstacles, as they have been portrayed in some memoranda, but function as community safeguards. State Street is first and foremost a street, a continuous linear urban space. Like any long, important urban street, it accommodates variety. It flows. It has a distinctive rhythm. But this variety and rhythm exist within an overall identity. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and it is the whole that a good master plan must describe.
All right. Woo! All right. There we go. It didn't take 2 rounds. All right. So it seems, first, just a note on that, it seems like everyone is in consensus with those sentiments, right?
When I mentioned, I was trying to get at principles, you'll notice that I said pedestrians belong on the sidewalk, wheels belong in the street. I didn't say cars or bicycles, yes, bicycles, no. That's a decision to be made. But as a general principle, if it's got wheels, it's in the street. If you're on feet, you're on the sidewalk.
So I would, actually, let's, before we jump into here, because I want to raise that question, I do want to note Commissioner Lenvick's comment in terms of at least where things are looking like they're heading right now, is that that options for discussion and selection by the State Street Advisory Commission are, the goal is to develop some options, and that include votable things for different blocks in terms of both circulation and character. So that is part of the next work effort, and so that will be going and working through, and also will be coming to HLC. So it's good for commentary. One more note on just framing the whole discussion. As I mentioned last time, but I think it's worth mentioning again, it is 2 parts of this, 2 purposes of this meeting, both for for us giving Commissioner Lenvik our thoughts and feelings and, helpful direction as much as possible, and also for us to pass on comments to SSAC, not just to bolster Commissioner Lenvik to go one way or another, or show the division within HLC of minds of things, but also to give commentary on on things that we are in consensus on to the SSAC as these drawings come out, and as these the visual things come out. And knowing, in the same way I mentioned last time, that we are not the design, we're not the review body for this. However, like public schools, which we don't have jurisdiction to say yes or no to, but still they appreciate our input and oftentimes, usually, take it. We still we're offering our ideas and our response to things, but with knowing that we're not the actual review body. So that's sort of just sort of setting the groundwork. So back to one of the things, for example, that I think might be fruitful in a way of thinking about it is, while the question of transportation has been a sort of thorny one over the years for HLC, and sometimes it's with bikes, bike lanes, or wadifications, and we have certain amount of jurisdiction over design. We also don't have full jurisdiction over, because it involves engineering and transportation itself. So and so it's a gray area where certain things have a visual impact or impact to the street or on those things. So with that, I would say maybe since we don't even have the authority to make the decision on this, it might be good to make recommendations for the character of what State Street what we feel, if there is a character or characters or principles that we feel are important. And to your point of the pedestrian, it might be, I think of the examples of Europe, all over Spain, Italy, and any historic and traditional, where there in most cases is not a sidewalk to road differentiator, where there are uniform things. There are uniform things. Do I think that a boulevard that we currently have would be a good idea to have a curbless? No, of course not, because we have vehicles traveling extremely fast and we have very wide roads, and so there's an accelerated thing. I think part of the question is, what is the character of that street and why? And is it does HLC have any opinion of what should be the main character of that? And a paseo, for example, is a pedestrian-only character, right? It's a passage for walking and walking only, and so it has that character. State Street.
Small Fiat.
Or exactly. If you're in Italy, and Vespas. And Vespas.
Smart.
But there is a character to different, and boulevards in Paris have a character that was for the carriages and the horses and the promenading and the pedestrian. And so there's different character for different urban experiences and spaces. So if there is a direction of what that might be a fruitful conversation of what and where, because also State Street is very ambiguous because it goes on up to La Cumbra. So does the character of State Street in certain parts matter more or less, and as to what it is, and what the pedestrian is, and what the wheeled vehicle is? So anyways, I thought I'd throw that out for,
Can I jump onto that?
Sure.
Real quickly, and adding on to Dennis's, one of the things, as a principle, I thought, and we talked about this last time, was simplicity trumps complexity. Now, this is my opinion, but what I see coming out of the much earlier previous work is way overbuilt, and it's way trying to do way too much. And having returned from a recent visit to a major metropolitan city in Europe, Paris has benefited enormously from blocking automobiles from certain parts entirely, and bicycles from other parts entirely. I think, and then finally, it is a challenge for us if we don't know if there's going to be cars and bicycles and what on the street, what the heck? Then how can you design something? How can you at least look at it objectively or apply something against that if you don't know, and I noticed they've opened up that little lane in front of the Granada now. You know, I came up Anapamu, I think it is, yeah, and suddenly the car turned left onto State Street, and I thought, what the hell? You know, so those are just simplicity over complexity. Understanding at some point may have to adjust once these traffic considerations are made. That's going to be important. And then on a personal note, it would be appropriate almost to see that the EPV has oozed into State Street so that it looks contiguous into areas. It does in part certain areas right now, like De La Guerra or whatever. But when you go down State Street, you go, yeah, it all works and functions, you know, as a continuous piece, I guess.
Are you, so I'm not clear on that last part about the oozing part. So.
Well, if you walk from De La Guerra Plaza, okay, and you walk into that, the real heart of the EPV, and then you walk onto State Street, do you find continuity? Do you find consistency? Do you find, those are the maybe the principles. I'm trying to stay to the principle question.
Well, I think they've been.
That's our job.
I think they've been contravened by signs, like Commissioner Howe's brought photographs of all these signboards.
The sandwich signs?
Sandwich signs and planters, and I think that makes the walking part of State Street a lot less amenable to people, because there's obstacles. It should be open.
The clutter.
It should be wide. It should be simple. You know, appropriate landscaping, nothing intruding on the street, except if it's wide enough, then you can have outdoor seating, and we get rid of those parklets, which would be a huge, there's such a visual chokehold on State Street, those parklets.
Now, one thing tied to this whole conversation that I did want to bring up from last time, that was some of the commentary, and actually a City TV, if you could, because I think it'll be easier to point out here than to go onto screens and that. One of the issues that I think, because these plans are so colorful and showing different paving and also different, you know, markets and the outdoor dining and pieces like that, that read visually at plan level more like built objects that are than if we did because some of the commentary was simplify and that these were a little busy. I think one of the things that the drawings, this is a good example, showing all tables and chairs and umbrellas and that makes it look very busy as a.
It is.
Yeah, makes it look very busy, at least in terms of a drawing. If you drew State Street as it was pre-COVID, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and which it still is in terms of the planters and existing stuff and a lot of the, but a lot of other stuff has been added. But it would look more cluttered and more complex than this drawing. I think that part of it is the visualization of the drawing is making furniture and even regular furniture read as a built object in a strong way. So anyways, I just wanted to comment on that and tie it to the clutter or complexity, because I think that actually this is the current one. Things that you're seeing are actually a very simplified compared to what State Street is right now, with all the planters, with benches, with fountains, with all the pieces that are actually built in. This is a sort of a simpler version. Anyways, that was just sort of a tied to comment to some of the other things. Okay, Commissioner Ensberg, or do we actually want to go and just everyone give 2 minutes to say their spiel? Is that what people are feeling, or are feeling?
I don't need to, but others might.
Okay, look, let's do that, and then let's try to focus on what areas that we can find that are both need to get discussed and have consensus on them. So we can just start the far end there and work our way down if you want.
Okay, I was going to make a comment that, well, my biggest question is the sidewalk and the street and the gutter going to remain, and that's what we have to work with, or is on the table is fleshing it out like in Europe? So that's quite a large question.
Not every word.
Yeah, so to answer that, I think it was thought of in potentially both ways. So part of and I think this is going to be part of the options that also need to get fleshed out and developed. But if it is not a sidewalk, if this is a sidewalk and this drops down and is a road, that's one thing. it also works potentially both ways, as long as this isn't maybe car traffic or something like that. If it's, there are also federal regulation and an ability to do multimodal in different ways. So that's also part of MIG's, what their knowledge and their ability has come from is being able to do multimodal in all different ways in all different cities. So in theory, it could be either right now, according to these drawings. And
then I like Commissioner Dorden's concept of all wheeled things are in the street, but the faster things are in the middle. So you could have the slower wheeled things on adjacent to the sidewalk and the fast things and emergency stuff in the middle. Of course, my thinking is no parklets, but definitely outdoor dining, as he mentioned. I like the idea of a regular tree placement and fewer shrub beds. More of just because I believe the shrub beds eat up a lot of space and are not particularly consistent with this big change out. I guess that's all oh, and pots and furniture compared to in-ground planters. That's all I have for now.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Ansberg.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can, I had prepared for what I thought was going to be 2 minutes last time, and then we didn't get to do it. So I hope you can bear with me, please.
Yeah, go for it.
But I 100%, I just appreciate so much what Commissioner Dorden has put together. I feel like this is a big picture issue that we need to deal with, and I think that, as he said, State Street is not broken, in my opinion. I think we have a beautiful downtown that was designed to go straight down to Cabrillo Boulevard, and Cabrillo Boulevard is, in fact, if you look at the definition of a promenade, it's a walkway or drive along a body of water. We have a promenade, and that's what it is down there. State Street is our main commercial area, and it requires that we have all the vehicles. It's for commerce. So I really feel like we need to be on the big picture. The other thing that has been very confusing, I think, is that we have, for the last 2 years, gotten tons of comment from all the public. So just like we do in our business as architects, we meet with our clients and we say, okay, what's your wish list? What's everything you can imagine that you think you would like? And they tell you, oh, I wish I could have this, I wish I could have that. You take all that in, and then you go do your homework and you figure out where are the areas where I have flexibility to move. That is the step that we have not done. And that was what was brought up very loudly at the SSAC meeting by Megan Harmon and Peter Lewis, Suzanne Tejada, Commissioner Lenvik, and Lee Heller, and others all brought that up. They were all very appreciative of the drawings and the beautiful drawings. We all know that we're going to have an El Pueblo Viejo design. That is clear. We all know this. What we don't know, and some of these things are not up for a vote. We need to know. I understand it, but I don't know. I want somebody at the city to tell me, we have a bicycle master plan, and it's an adopted thing. And I believe that it says that there are bikes in the street. So if that's not negotiable, then we should know that. Just like we know that if we have, emergency fire, we know we have to have 20 feet in the middle of the street, period. No vote on that. We're not asking anybody their whole opinion about it. ADA, accessibility for people, like the trolley, I believe, is really important. So these are the things, and this is what that group was saying. They said, we need to have the hard discussion, and we need somebody to confirm where those boundaries are. Like I'll say, setbacks, height, blah, blah, blah. That's stuff that is not negotiable. That's the part we need to know, and once we know that, then we can start designing. We can design anything. We can make it beautiful. There's no question about that. So I think that this is the direction we should be going, and that we should understand that this is Santa Barbara. We are unique. That picture, this is Santa Barbara. We're not Boulder, Colorado. We're not, we're not anywhere else. We're here. And our system of everything is designed for here, like our drainage. Some places do have flat. Not everywhere in Europe. Everybody likes to say, oh, flat, like in Europe. Well, that's not true. It depends on where you are and how the topography works and how the water drains. And, here we have the mountains over there and the ocean over there, and it all comes down. So how does that work? So these are these technical things. We, because of COVID, we closed down the street, and then we never, and we didn't deal with all of these very, very difficult technical issues. That's what a master plan needs to do, is to sort all of that out and then come up with, before we make these fundamental changes to our State Street, we need to do that work, in my opinion, before we do that. Otherwise, we have very unintended consequences that we have seen. So, I guess that's what I was wanting to say, is let's go with big picture. And I have full confidence that we will, I'm hoping we can use local. We have so much talent in this town. I feel like we should be using our local talent for design, not be going out of town to get a consultant that doesn't know our town like we do. And we should be using maybe perhaps design competitions to be able to look at those things. So I'll stop there, but I just think we need those big questions, those hard questions answered before. I could talk about every single one of those slides and I could say, oh, I like this or I like that. I don't think it's relevant. I think we need to know this other big piece, and then we can move forward with understanding, what are the elements that we have to deal with. Thank you for hearing me out.
Commissioner?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Drury?
I agree with those comments, and I'm for, I'll tell you what I'm against. I'm against visual clutter. I'm against obstacles in the streets. I'm against markets in the middle of State Street. I'm against anything that blocks the view. And the view is simply something pedestrian. It's a pedestrian view going down State Street. You should be able to see the ocean uncluttered at the bottom of the street. That's really kind of one of the great gazes from let's say, Anapamu looking down toward the beach. I'm for open space. I'm for accessibility. And I'm certainly for what Commissioner Ensberg's talking about, finding what the legal fire department, police department, maintenance workers parameters are in terms of that open space. But I think that the idea of hiring outside consultants and spending city money, when this very table, I don't include myself, but this very table would have all the ability needed to make State Street a beautiful place. Thank you.
Well, as Peter Lewis said at the meeting, we got to get real. And I think that so far we have not, by we, I mean the State Street Advisory Committee, the designers, whatever, the public and their requests and demands are not real. They're not real. We've got to get real. I don't know how we're going to accomplish that quickly, but I think that one given that we should all agree on is you cannot have pedestrians and bikes in the same space. It is, in my opinion, it is unsafe. It makes for visual clutter. It does a lot of things. The bikers may be, they may be constitutionally guaranteed State Street.
And I think along just on that note, because we are kind of circling around, and I think it is important to understand what are the rules of engagement for it. But there is a bike master plan. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think that knowing ADA has to be done as a law, right? And there's no change. I think that even our master plans can be adapted. So as I understand it, I think it's important to both understand what can be and cannot be changed and why. Mm-hmm. And so that if there is an implication for a design that for a portion of State Street, for whatever, how many blocks or whatever, that involves also adopting a revision to it. It is we need to know what is possible and what is, and how much has to get changed to do that. So I think that there are some subtleties to that, some good commentary, but then the State Street Advisory Commission as well, with staff, will need to know what can be decided. And if it does decide this, it triggers other things, but it might be doable, but you have to change these other pieces to make it work. And then other things won't be. There won't be an option where State Street is steps going up, because that's not accessible, right? If you ramped State Street and made it steps, that's just not going to actually,
That's a great idea.
So in Rome, Campidoglio, you can have this.
No one of authority has said that you can have a curbless street from building front to building front with bikes running down it and not have these handicap dots running all the way along as well to keep people who are visually impaired from wandering into the street. You've got to have some control. Now that control is a curb and a gutter, and you don't go beyond it. But I think we've got to accept the fact we cannot have people wandering down the middle of the street and bikers, charging down as well.
And I guess tied on to that is a question, which is, if there is a portion that is one is favored versus the other, if there is something that's agreed upon by HLC, where would we see something that is, because it sounds like is you can always walk your bike, right?
Exactly.
So
Walk the bike.
you can, in a design, a paseo, for example, even by jogging the paseo and by making it small, is naturally people don't ride their bikes through there, or very rarely, and
Sure.
it doesn't, and it feels like that. It feels like a pedestrian intentional space, right?
Right.
So the question becomes, if you're going to prioritize the pedestrian at various areas, blocks, whatever, of State Street, I don't think anyone in this room would say we should, prioritize 1600 block should be pedestrian. That's really where it should be pedestrian favored, right?
Right.
So if there is an area along State Street where pedestrian should be the most favorable, where would that be?
True.
On the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk.
Well, that's if there's a differentiator, because the multimodal thing is part of the discussion, and whether there is a curb or not is a question, and that's going to be a question that eventually gets answered both by transportation and federally. There are cases, for sure, plenty of examples where you have curbless roads. So it's not a question of whether it's actually possible. It is by federal standards. So the question would be: is there is there a zone? What is the zones, if there are zones, of blocks where it should be pedestrian oriented more than the bike, or not? Should everything be the same?
The thing that is puzzling to me, Anthony, is that if you walk down, if you're on State Street Thursday morning at 11 o'clock or Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, people, or even on Fridays and Saturdays, people are on the sidewalk adjoining the building. And that's where the people want to be. They don't want to be walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Well,
it may be traditional, it's also convenient. I'm here to look at the shop windows, I'm here to look at the pastries in the shop. I don't want to walk down the middle of a street and have bikes there and have to, it's bad enough when I'm traveling with my wife and I'm walking down one side of the street because I see bookstores or whatever, and she's on the other side of the street, and we're crossing the street all the time to try to be together. I think what people want to do is they want to be by the shops. You want to have your outside dining by the storefront so the food comes out warm and stays warm. You want to be able to have a drink. Right now, under state law, you can't have a drink when the dining is separated from the building. It's being done, but it's not going to happen long, probably. So I think we got to be practical and reasonable. We can't be driven by letters to the editor who insists that walking down the middle of the street is the only way they can live in Santa Barbara. We've got to, as someone said, we got to get back, and you said it, we're designers. we take all this stuff in, and then we have to clean it up and so we can make something work. And it's,
I think, I agree with that general statement for a certain type of street. But you look at De La Guerra Plaza and now De La Guerra Street as it currently is being designed to raise it up, to have it pedestrian. To say that there's only one type of traditional good Santa Barbara style and worthy section of cross section for State Street doesn't seem true, because and when you say traditional is not curb and sidewalk. Curb and sidewalk can be done in a traditional esque manner, and it was even having like a boardwalk.
This is my 2 minutes. You can.
Well, okay.
You can do it later, okay?
That's
Do it
fine.
later.
Okay, go ahead. Finish your
This
2
is my
minutes.
2 minutes,
Okay.
and I'm going to finish here.
Okay.
And I'm done now. I think that we have another problem that we're all gleefully excited about, and that's 400 people living in the Macy's building on State Street. Talk about the potential for an instant slum by saying, I've got what is normally about 6 square blocks of housing now in a quarter of a block. Tell me that's not a potential. It satisfies a lot of people to say we're going to have housing downtown, but we're creating a slum, in my opinion, where Macy's is. Talk.
All right. Next 2 minutes.
Well, something as painfully obvious is that it is not an easy nut to crack. From my perspective, I think the whole thing is being approached in the wrong way as a process. And I think some of the commissioners have already touched on some pieces of that. The first one is in agreement with Commissioner Dordan. The community has not agreed upon a set of principles that will guide the decision-making of how this corridor is changed. And until we can agree upon these principles, the rest of it is a waste of our time. Because what happens is we immediately zip in on the detail of the drainage grate at the 400 block corner of whatever, and we get into a debate about what that drainage grate is, but we haven't agreed upon what the drainage system should be to start with. So I'm challenged by this convergent, divergent ball that is just doing this, which will not allow us to actually come to an agreement on anything, because we will never agree. And so I would implore the State Street Advisory 9 acronym committee to focus on trying to develop those principles. From there, the decision-making process, I think, becomes clearer. And the last thing that we should be debating, and which really is, in my opinion, not a debate, and that is the technicalities of how to implement it. I'm not going to be arguing with a traffic engineer about the cross-section of a curb if that's what is decided. Those people know what that is. I don't need to argue about that. The size of the pipe to carry a certain volume of water. A hydrology engineer will figure that out. Landscape, et cetera. The details and the technicality should be the last thing we're talking about as this thing has evolved. And so, in my opinion, we're just approaching the problem all wrong. Commissioner Insberg pointed out the concept that as architects and designers, we're presented with a problem from a client. I want to build a house, but they don't know what. And then they start talking about what they want in this, which I suppose would be the guiding principles of what they want out of their house. And we take all that input and we begin to solve the problem. And I don't see that any of this process has included any of that. And so unfortunately, nothing's going to happen in my lifetime, and I've got to get 30 years, God willing. I don't think I'll see any progress in this if it continues to go the way it is.
All right, Vice Chair House?
Well, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I don't disagree with much. But as I said last time, my driving principle is visual simplicity. And to expand on that, I think the opposite of that is chaos. And that can be visual chaos of the clutter that's been mentioned. But I also think bicycles and pedestrians are chaos. And so, I feel very strongly about that. In the last several years, other streets have been restriped in order to accommodate more bicycles and fewer lanes of traffic. And so I don't see that there's as strong a need for State Street to be a bicycle thoroughfare, because they're not shopping, they don't have shopping bags, they're not stopping at restaurants. They're enjoying this nice long downhill run, and uphill too, because they're motorized. And the idea was to get vehicles off of State Street. I think the design can accommodate a trolley of some sort, so that solves the accessibility part of it. But I think visual simplicity and elimination of chaos, and this becomes part of the Paseo network. This is the Paseo Mayor of State Street. So that's what I would like to see.
All right.
Very quickly, I'd like to make an observation that builds on Commissioner Uli and Commissioner Ensberg's comments, and it goes to what I think of as a problem statement, and it's the 50-50 problem. Over the last several years, the city has collected enormous amount of public comment, and if you sift through all that, 50% of the people want bikes, 50% don't. 50% of the people want the street closed, 50% of them want them open. When there is no consensus, how do you move the process forward? I think the city council would love consensus, because in the absence of consensus, it means making difficult decisions. I think there is a role for the professional design community in this town, which is unusually sophisticated for a town this size, to say, in this 50-50 problem setting, here's what we can do. And that's what this set of drawings was a major first step, in my opinion, much more useful than the images created by MIG in previous meetings. But we have to realize that the public comment and public input is not going to show us the answer. The way when you sit with a house client and you listen to them, they will tell you what you need to know. It's not a 50-50 problem for them. But in this case, Santa Barbara we're stuck with what I'm calling a 50-50 problem. And I think it calls for professional expertise to take a community role in, among other things, urging or showing the city council how to move forward.
I agree with that.
Okay. Commissioner Butler?
I guess I get to be the lucky one that gets to go.
The cleanup battle.
So I've made it, I'll try to keep this brief, but I want to pick up on what Dennis said. Dennis said State Street's not broken. Great, I agree. Then what the hell are we trying to do? If it's not broken, and I would agree it's not broken, what are we trying to do? So that gets back to now the discussion of principles and Cass's comments, what we used to call in marketing is the boundaries of freedom. You can do anything you want within these particular boundaries. You can work within that, and that gets back to what is and all the other comments here about let the details be developed, the curb width, and all. That's not, so that gets back to principles. And then the details being really determined by experts. And the final comment is, designed by democracy doesn't work.
Designed by committee.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. All right.
That's all.
All right, so with our last 18 minutes here, and because Commissioner McClure is leaving in 3, any other So I think you gave some good commentary on the plantings and the pots and furniture and that. So I think those are good and can be a helpful.
But I do stand corrected, like the fundamentals, we have to have criteria. I was kind of getting into detail when I believe I was misguided.
Who was first?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is the bigger question of, I agree, it's a fundamentals question, and then the next step of fundamentals, and I think some of the core fundamentals are that need to be decided is what is the character, what is being created. So when we look at El Paseo and what it was doing as a showing what the future could be, and taking the Santa Barbara block and integrating these passageways that were not there before, and it wasn't the regular grid before, and now it's this whole new character that's being decided as a sort of a framework for what could the rest of the city be. That's a very, that's based on principles of where you want to go with this Spanish town feel within this, integrated within this regularized grid of an American city block. And that's a vision for kind of going forward. That has a particular character that you're creating. You're creating an experience of walking through a block, walking with buildings of a certain height and proportion and openings of a certain height and proportion and asymmetry and whimsy and discovery and all that. That's a vision that you're creating. So part of that question is the vision of what State Street could or should be, and there might be plenty of good answers for that. But those answers need to be a describable vision, and I think that would tie to principles in the same way that the move of inserting El Paseo into the block in the first way was a decided vision, and then it got carried to some degree, but not to this degree, forward after the earthquake, because things came down and only certain things were. It was a remodel. It wasn't a build new. So, anyways, that's my kind of comment on the principles. I agree it does have to be principled, and at the same time, it's also a vision of what is that space and what does that feel like and why. Why is that better than what we currently have?
Chair Grumbine, could I just add a little bit to what?
Sure.
If you don't mind. One of the things I was thinking about, our favorite words, the firmness, the commodity, the delight. I feel like right now, and back to what Commissioner Jordan said, it's not broken. The bones aren't broken, but right now it's broken.
Yeah, I agree.
It is broken right now, but it's like you find a great old house, it's fantastic, and it just needs some tender loving care.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to clarify that. It is broken right now, if you ask me. And when I think about firmness, commodity, and delight, we're always thinking, or at least, we're talking about poetry and the delight part. I think that the commodity part is broken. We have the firmness, we have the structural integrity, we have the beauty, but it's that functionality that isn't working because we just closed down the street without really thinking fully about what does that mean. And so the other thing that I always like to think about is the Venn diagram. We're trying to find the center of the Venn diagram because we have to be concerned about everything. We have to have the circulation, we have to have the ADA, we have to have the food and beverage, we have to have the correct number of toilets for extra dining in the street, we have to have the stormwater management. All of this stuff has to come together, and we as architects understand, we work, as Commissioner Uli was saying, we don't, okay, we've all decided now this is what we're going to do, and you go figure out the drainage and the pipe size and all that. But we have to come together with what it is, and how are we covering all the bases, that center of the Venn diagram? And right now, we aren't, a lot of these things aren't being met. And we don't have, directing back to SSAC, we need to work the way that we, as architects, are very familiar with. You work with all the different consultants, but you have this vision. It's going to be, say you're designing the courthouse. You've got this great vision for this incredible building, but you've got to have circulation, hallways, HVAC, mechanical, drainage, pumps, all kind of stuff you have to have in there. So you have to be sure all of those things get put in the right place, just like we were talking earlier on this.
And you have to get it to all look good, too.
Yeah, but in the ultimate, you want it
And
all
that's-
to be,
and that's part of
to look the way you want it to look in the end. And that's what we do all the time. But the public doesn't, this process, so I agree with what others have said. It's the wrong way. It's frustrating for us because we're familiar with this. We understand how this process is supposed to work, and we understand how we get the guide, the guardrails, and then we figure out how to get everything that they wanted within the guardrails, right? So through that creative process. But let's not forget who we are. We are Santa Barbara, California. We're nowhere else in the world. People all around the world look to Santa Barbara, California, because we are who we are. And so we need to fix the street, but it really is,
And I would say
Anyway.
there, one point along that is.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, one thing along there, then Commissioner McClure, along that line, I think part of the way at least I look at it is sort of.
He needs to leave, so
Yeah,
maybe he
yes,
should speak.
yeah, and maybe you can react to this, but it's not a matter of, in this case, it's not a matter of fixing State Street, it's a matter of trying to improve on something. And so, in the same way we try to improve on a block, we don't even have a single block in all of Santa Barbara that has 4 paseos that actually exit on, in four good paseos that exit, that you can actually cross through to anything. So, is Santa Barbara broken? Not really, but can we improve it? Yeah, by even just getting 4
I don't
paseos.
think State Street's broken at all.
But can we improve
Well,
it, is the question.
I don't think it's broken at all.
Okay.
What
all
if
right.
you just widen both sidewalks by 8 feet? And that's all you do.
So that is basically what the 400 block is, because it still has to have two-way traffic. So that was part of it, was you have to have two-way traffic because of fire department reaction times and things like that. So that was a solution that allowed cars, one lane in each direction, bikes, as well as just widening the sidewalk. So that, yeah, and
Mr. Chair?
yes, Commissioner Drury.
So when I say it's not broken, I mean, I'm just talking about the daily life of the street. It's thronged with people. I've been down there quite a bit lately because my granddaughter turned 21, and you can imagine what that means. Police, fire, no. Joking. But it was a real revelation to me to go down there midweek and see how active it is. I know it's Easter week and all that, but I don't believe it's broken at all. I think what happened is that City Council reacted to COVID and the shutting of many restaurants with a plea for help from the restaurant people by building these god-awful parklets. And they served their purpose. It's time for those things to go away. What if we could just, by fiat, just say, all the parklets are gone? I mean, the breathing of the street would be just gigantic, a sigh of relief, I think, for certainly the visual aspect of State Street. So I don't believe it's broken at all. I think we have to make some tough decisions perhaps, but I'm willing to just wave a magic wand and get it done.
There you go, let's do that.
All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Broken, not broken, I agree with you, improvements could be made, and that would be widened sidewalks to accommodate outdoor dining against the facade of the building. There's not enough room right now, and I agree with the comment about getting rid of the hedges or the planter pockets, because that just frees up more space. One thing that hasn't been said, but I think we all know, is that one difference between State Street and other cities that try and implement some kind of pedestrian promenade like 3rd Street in Santa Monica is it's a mishmash of different buildings of different styles. It's not really pretty to look at. We've got a really pretty setting. So I think we've got a strong foundation for making this a beautiful place.
In 30 minutes, and then the staff are going to walk out the door.
Yeah.
Go over the light switch and turn it off.
All right, so the question now is, what do we want to put forward to SSAC, right? I think there's very much universal consensus on Commissioner Jordan's bullet points, which have been put forward, as well as principles, and as sort of the fundamentals. So I think seems like that's one thing we want to, as a group, HLC, saying we think that these are appropriate and right, and that principles are very important as the foundation for helping making decisions. What else do we want to put forward, if anything?
I think Commissioner Gordon's bullet points, I think that was sort of a credo to we can hang the whole dang thing on, what Commissioner Gordon proposed. I mean, I think it gives us the tools and it gives us a vision of what we would like State Street to be.
Should we have him read it again?
I can send it, I can send it to staff.
It'd be great if we could have copies, please. Yep.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. What we can do is have as part of the minutes for this item, we could just summarize Commissioner Jordan's bullet points, and that could be kind of the discussion that's included in the minutes.
Yeah, good. And it's been recorded, too. So,
And then, Chair Grumman, then if that were the case, I think that's great, and then we would get that in the minutes, and so then we could all review it next time, and then if we had any adjustments to make, we could do it at that time?
So yes, because this is not a formal motion, you would have some flexibility to edit some of those when you review the minutes at the next meeting. I would caution you to not go rewriting them and just keep it to minor edits.
That's fine.
Okay.
I believe that advisory committee is not going to be meeting until mid-May or later, maybe June even. So we have time. But, the little pocket groups, interim groups are going to be meeting, but even those are down the road, like a week or 2 weeks before they start.
So, yeah, and I think that it will probably be helpful as soon as we do approve the minutes, hopefully we can do it next time, that they then just get sent out to they can get sent out and just, so that everyone, even in the small groups, they already have those as HLC recommendation, like directive.
And so, Chair Grumbine, so Commissioner Jordan, so we can get the document that you put out sooner rather than later, so we can all remember?
That document contains bullet points as such, but you have the bullet points.
Yeah, I have the bullet points.
Yeah, good.
Condense it to the bullet points that he read.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and that's, okay.
We can have Commissioner Jordan send that to staff, and we'll distribute it to the commission. But I would caution the commission to not respond to us, so we don't have like kind of a chain Brown Act violation.
We'll start our own chat group.
Don't tell me about it. Just kidding.
Just kidding, for the record, just kidding, we're not, there is no chat group, we're not gonna start it.
It seems to me that Commissioner Jordan has some experience with architecture on some level.
And some critiquing of it.
Urban planning on
maybe a
some
little
level,
bit.
I can't put my finger on it.
Something to do with historic, too.
Attach his resume, is that what you want?
Even though he's not the technical architecture historian, which is hilarious. Okay.
And Chair Grumman,
Great.
I just want to say how much I appreciate this conversation, and it's just so important, and appreciate everybody's input. And I just can't think of really anything that we're doing that is more important than this, so thank you.
And we didn't have to pound on the table either.
Yeah, I didn't even use this at all. All right, great, well, 5 minutes early for the record, let's adjourn. All right, meeting's adjourned, all right.